What's up, San Anubis?
What you think about when you're born into a fire? Let them burn it out. Sell them to the richest buyer. They wanna let the world decay. They tell us lies and fade away, fade away. We feel betrayed.
Marita, what's up? What's happening?
Never let the truth fade away. This is bigger than ourselves. We won't let the world burn away, burn away. We feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake it to the back of the pack, kill it anyway. To play.
Nothing. The tornado today. You had a tornado? In Kentucky? I don't know if you live in Kentucky. I'm just saying I see on the news. It said something about Kentucky. start Facebook. And pause that. Music. Go see. It'll take a second to start. Then I'll be there. Yes, Kentucky, about 10 miles from me. Said it was headed our way, but it dissipated. Oh, shit. Well, that's no good. I'm glad you're all right. And do a lot of devastation or anything? Oh, there it is. Like. Change accounts. Like and share. Share now. Good, good, good. That's good. Over here. I think we got it, boys. Maybe. Roll the bean footage.
Hey Daddies, it's me, the Linda Binda from TikTok. I wanted to make this video because I wanted to thank you for watching Cold Beer Confessionals with Will Bird. I think that's just incredible. I've watched a few episodes and I'm just like very intrigued. But you know what I'm most intrigued in is Big Daddy's meat stick. I heard that it's very thick, like a good old German sausage. You know, Linda and her coochie loves that. Oh, never mind. Let's not go there. Anyways, I hope you have a good show and enjoy it as you can. There's a lot of weird things that go on, especially when it comes from the realm of Linda Bindaland. So, enjoy the show. Thanks for watching. Peace out.
Welcome everybody. I am Will Bird, and this is a Cold Beer Confessional. You all good from tornadoes? Tornado emoji. All right. Thank you guys for joining us. I'm Will Bird. This is Cold Beer Confessional. Welcome everybody. I know I started late again, and there's not as many people here, but you know, sometimes it just be like that. You know what I mean? Potato is what I always say. So Reckless Ben did a video. We saw some of that video where basically the gag order was lifted. It seems like the case is probably going to get thrown out. At least it's changing jurisdiction and going back to California for some of the cases. And they just outright lied about Reckless Ben. They said that he was threatening to kill people, that he told them, like, you're either going to give the Legos back or I'm going to bring a gun in here and kill your employees, blah, blah, blah. He kind of alluded to a lot of that stuff. And he told them, like, at first, all I wanted was the money and the Legos. But now you've done this. Now I want the money, the Legos, and I want you to do the chicken dance. They have 1 week left to respond to the chicken dance offer. And now he's to the point, and at the end of that week, he'll be the point where he's going to make a further demand. But it's really, really, really looking bad for Bricks and Minifigs. Also, he alluded to the fact that he's doing interviews with a lot of franchisee owners. Reckless Ben said himself, like, I don't want to hurt the franchisee owners, but it's kind of hard to separate the two. Corporate makes money because you, as a franchise owner, send them money, right? And you're using their name and their reputation and their whatever, their franchise to make this money. So it's kind of hard to separate the two. Even though we should be able to and be like, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys, it's kind of hard. So he's alluded to the fact that he is talking to his franchise owners, but then he put this out today, which was pretty good.
To believe what they're trying.
Wrong one. Give me just a second. That's the Epstein, J.D. Vance, Joe Rogan bullshit. This is the one I need. Copy link address. Sorry, wrong link.
A bunch of new body cam footage came in. No one's ever seen it, and we're gonna watch it right now.
He came to harass us at our place. He's out of state.
So this is filmed right after I get released from jail the first time because I got arrested because I was trying to serve them court papers.
So basically, when they let Ben out of jail, the evil genius guy, Eamon, like freaked out. He's like, there got to be something you can charge him with, or stack this up, or do this, and they weren't charging him. So then he went to saying that Ben made these threats, like, you either give us the Legos or I'm coming back here with a gun and I'm going to shoot you, which is, first of all, ridiculous for Ben to do. Like, they know he's making his money off YouTube. Why would he go in there and make a threat or do something that would end or potentially harm his ability to make YouTube videos? That doesn't make any sense. And then when that didn't work, you'll watch this guy multiple times try to get the police to tell him that it's okay to arm the employees and have them shoot Ben. Literally, we're at the point of murder. The guy's like, so you tell me, should I start keeping a shotgun in the stores for protection? Is that what I should do now? Because I'm at the point where I'm going to go get them guns. And you, the police officer, you tell me that I should get a gun. And the guy's like, well, I advise everybody that's legally can carry, should carry, blah, blah, blah. But it's almost like he wanted to arm the employees. Then when Ben comes in, he wants one of them to shoot Ben. And when they do, he can say, well, the police told us to get a gun for our protection. We told them everything that was going on, and the police officer said, get a gun.
Taking to court. They're just making up reasons for me to be arrested, but then I get out of jail because I paid for bond, I get out of jail, and now Ammon's just calling the police because he's like, you guys let Ben out of jail? Like, what the hell? Like, how could you guys do that? Ben needs to be in jail right now.
So he was arrested, and I think he was booked into the Utah County Jail, and he must have been released, even though he's an out-of-state, flight risk.
All right, sinus
so
is bothering me.
He's a YouTuber that does this stuff for videos and clicks. Okay. He was arrested in California for doing this kind of trespassing and kind of stuff, like before, just I think in 2024. Right.
My first time getting arrested ever was for serving my court papers.
First time ever getting arrested.
This is my first time ever getting arrested, but I think Ammon's thinking, oh, well, if I lie to the police and make it seem like he's a criminal, maybe they'll just keep him in jail this time.
They also went as far, you'll see it in just a video, or just a second in the video. They went as far as just finding somebody that shares his name, who's a fucking pedo from Ohio. And it's like, oh, yeah, this guy, Ben may have been the guy he was assaulting, and maybe that made him crazy to do all this crazy stuff. Maybe he's got all this trauma. It's just so weird.
So that's what's happening. And so, but we like he's also been passing fraudulent gift certificates to financially harmed persons.
Fraudulent gift certificates. Is he the Guinness World Record?
Oh, I was so confused. I've watched that part like 5 or 6 times. I was like, what's he mean gift certificates?
No, I think he means the World Record certificate. It's an award for most Legos stolen by any company in the world.
So he tries to accuse them of trying to use fake gift certificates. But the only thing they did was give them a fake Guinness World Record certificate that said most Legos stolen by a company.
That's what's going on. But at this point, I just need some information so I can tell our staff what is going on, because if I need to go and get some of my staff armed so that he can't threaten them, that's what I need to do. Or they're going to go find him and rearrest him because he clearly had to have violated some kind of rule. There's got to be something to stop this guy from continuing to intimidate our staff.
Yeah, how'd you guys let this guy out of jail? If we let this guy out of jail, he's going to kill our staff. Like, how can you possibly think of letting this guy out of jail?
You watch this? I feel like you're just like, dude, this is hilarious. I'm like, dude, this pisses me off.
Yeah, it's pretty funny, yeah.
like, he's literally lying through his freaking teeth.
I don't know what has been done since he was arrested yesterday.
Sure.
Like, we all sighed a big sigh of relief this morning knowing that he was arrested last night. Yeah. And then to have this happen all over again, like, everyone's feeling pretty significant trauma that he's just not going to stop.
So it's not the police or corrections that let him out. That's going to be a judge, right? And so that would be a complaint that would have to be directed towards their office to find out what's the deal. Why would you let this guy out when he's stalking us, right? That's
yeah. So really quick. Sorry, let me grab a pen. Who do I contact for that?
He's like, dude, what are you talking to me about this for? Talk to the judge.
The police officer's like, we tried to keep him in jail until his court case for a month, but the stupid judge let him out. So like, don't complain to me, complain to the judge.
Yeah, what are you doing?
I suggest you put all evidence that you have against this guy on them.
He acts really like cutesy, like he's clearly got some form of sociopathic disorder because he lies through his teeth. He says and does whatever he can to just get away with whatever he wants. Again, multiple arrests, I think, in the past in different states.
So obviously, if you look in the police records, you can see that I've never been arrested before. But because Ammon says so, maybe the police will just listen to Ammon.
Taking his word every single time. They're taking his word over your evidence. Doesn't make any sense.
I don't know.
That's another charge, obviously. I mean, we'll stack him until he leaves you guys alone, I guess. You know what I mean? Or they put him in jail, one or the other.
Dude, that's so insane to freaking say.
Basically, I think
that's the cops colluding. Like, we'll try to stack everything up that we can so we can get this guy in jail for longer.
Ammon lied to them saying that there's a restraining order when there wasn't, and so he's like, oh, well, that's another charge, and we're just going to keep making up charges about me until I'm in jail for good is kind of what it sounds like. Even though the evidence goes against everything you say, I want to help you out, Ammon.
Because Bug.
I can stack. I'll try to stack it on this stalking case.
Oh my god, dude! Does he not know that he's recorded?
I am just going to figure this out here. Okay, sir. I'm going to call the jail, and then I will meet you over there. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Yep. Bye. Hey, it's Abrams with Orem Police Department. How you doing? You guys let a guy go this morning. It sounds like the was released from.
Again, this guy's not calling dispatch. He's calling a cop on his cell phone, which is also weird, right? And the cop's like, yeah, we'll stack as many charges as we can, hopefully get him for harassment.
Jail today.
Officer Abrams?
Yep.
Nice to meet you.
Yep. Man, is there any way I can use your bathroom?
Yeah, for sure. We've got the back here.
Taking my body camera off and setting it down for a second so I can use the bathroom. You shouldn't be doing this stuff, right? You know what I mean? All 5 of them should be charged.
Basically what they're saying now is not only should we put Ben in jail for forever for trying to serve these court papers, we should put all 5 of his team members in jail for trying to take you guys to court. You guys don't deserve to go to court, and anyone that tries to take you to court, we're going to put them in jail indefinitely.
They started threatening to kill some of the staff. And so they're just like, hey, if you don't, we're gonna kill you if you don't get this guy's money back and all this other stuff, like all these things. And so we're like, dude, like you guys have to go through the appropriate legal channels. This guy has nothing.
Did you hear those threats? That didn't happen?
You guys don't deserve to go to court, and anyone that tries to take you to court, we're going to put them in jail indefinitely.
They started threatening to kill some of the staff. And so they're just like, hey, if you don't, we're gonna kill you if you don't get this guy's money back and all this other stuff.
We're going to kill you. Now, he recorded everything, every interaction. Why? Because it's content. Also to protect himself. We're going to kill you if you don't give this guy his Legos back.
All these things, and so we're like, dude, like you guys have to go through the appropriate legal channels. This guy has nothing to do with it, other than he just gets off on making videos and like if you look him up again, he goes by the name of and he films himself doing illegal things all the time, and then he gets his videos taken down, do all sorts of research on him. That's what we're dealing with. Is a guy who had, like, honest to goodness, he's a sociopath. Because we've done some additional searches on him. He has it appears that a relative of his, because he's originally from Ohio and then he moved to LA. Some relative of his with the same name. That, based on what we can piece together, was convicted of child porn or child sexual contact, some of these other types of things. So there's a very real chance that he may have been abused as a child, but that set him through a mental disorder, and whatever the case may be. He's clearly a sociopath. He does not care about the system.
My whole family's pretty close.
So literally just found somebody with the same name, Benjamin Snyder, and said, well, this is a relative of his, is a pedophile, and blah, blah, blah. But they're not even related.
And I'm 99.999999999% sure that's not true. But if it is true, I would like to know who that is. So, because that's probably important information for me if there is someone in my family that's like that. But
just a really quick update. I think we found the guy that Ammon's talking about.
Athens man is sentenced after he was found guilty of 110 felony counts for recording and distributing child pornography from his home. Benjamin.
That guy has nothing to do with the Ben we're talking about. They're not related. They're not friends. They don't know each other. They're not from the same place. Nothing to do with him.
Schneider is sentenced to 8 years in prison.
So yeah, I guess this guy also got charged in Ohio, and he has a very similar name to me. It's actually the exact same name as me. And maybe he thought that this person was me. Maybe that explains why he's saying I have been arrested multiple.
There's a William Byrd High School, but it's not mine, right? Apparently the guy was like a composer or some shit.
Times. I mean, clearly this person is not me. I mean, but also maybe Ammon's not the smartest person in the world, so maybe he thought that we were the same person. I don't know, but this is the closest I was able to find of what Ammon could be talking about.
We know this guy's a sociopath, and so we're very afraid for our staff. And these guys coming in, they've threatened people before. They don't care about the law, right? And that's what makes us very.
They've threatened people before, and they don't care about the law. Ben goes out of his way to make every video oh, we're going to try to play by the rules. We can't do this. That's illegal, so we're going to do this instead. He's known also for skirting around the rules. The rule says you can't do A, but we'll do B, which, obviously will have the same outcome, but not illegal.
Scared is because, again, I'm kind of asking a serious question. In your opinion, would you go get a shot?
Oh, no, Bug.
He keeps asking, you're...
That was it. In your opinion, would you keep a shotgun in the store? Listen.
And so we're very afraid for our staff. And these guys coming in, they've threatened people before. They don't care about the law, right? And that's what makes us very scared is because, again, I'm kind of asking a serious question. In your opinion, would you go get a shotgun and bring it in the store?
He keeps...
In your opinion, would you get a shotgun and put it in the store? Again, why are they so terrified of Ben? There's been no threats made. He acts like they're just all sitting around waiting to die.
Asking, you're the police officers, do you think it's a good idea that we should have guns to defend ourselves next time Reckless Ben comes in, right? I think what he's trying to do is, because Josh Johnson said he was going to shoot us just for trying to serve him papers.
Holy crap, dude. Wait, hold on. This is insane. So he's basically asking, hey, officers, do you think it's a good idea for me to have a shotgun, in case this guy comes around again? So he can get the okay from the police officer. Yeah. So he's like, hey, the officer said I can, insinuating that he can kill you.
Well, the police officers would have told me to do this. I'm just within my rights. He was trying to kill me, and I'm just defending myself. Yeah, he's trying to come up with a reason to justify murdering us, I think, which...
This is actually insane.
Yeah, it's a little scary, but...
In a situation like this, where some people we feel like are in danger.
I personally encourage people who are able to carry legally to carry.
Okay, so that's basically all the footage after I got arrested of them freaking out, and I think that kind of explains why, because a few hours later, we do the GoFundMe, Sheldon gets arrested just for promoting this GoFundMe, and then they sent a whole SWAT team of police officers to my house to just arrest everyone. So basically, Ammon's doing what I like to call the 3-year-old method, which is basically, if a 3-year-old really wants something, they're not getting it, what do they usually do?
Whine, cry, kick the back of the seat when they're in the car.
Basically this. That's kind of what Ammon's doing. Like, Ammon at first isn't really getting what he wants. It's like, I mean, I guess he got me arrested, but then I get out of jail, and he's like, oh, shoot, if I just keep saying he's stalking us, they're not going to keep him in jail for stuff. I got to make up some story to put him back in jail. It's exactly what a 3-year-old would do, right? And then he says, we're going to murder him. He's like, we're threatening him, and
he's not getting what he wants, so he just keeps, like, whining and crying. He's like, they're doing this,
and we can't, threatening. Yeah, I mean, we can't, honestly, we can't really get mad at Ammon for doing this because, I mean, we used to do the same thing also, right? Like literally everyone used to do this, but then we turned like 5 years old, and we
grew out of it.
Yeah, like we turned 5, and then we realized that this was not the correct method to do what we want.
Yeah, basically the person that sent me all this body cam footage asked if I could respond.
It's funny while in this body cam footage, the guy says, well, he's trying to accuse us of like colluding with you and like a setup while they're literally colluding and planning a setup. Like, it's crazy.
Respond to what Ammon's saying. So I'm saying my official response to Ammon is goo goo gaga, because I feel like that's the appropriate way to respond to someone who's acting like a baby. And send.
So right after this phone call, they arrest Sheldon for just promoting our GoFundMe and sent a bunch of SWAT team members to like SWAT our house, which kind of makes that make more sense to me now based on what Ammon was saying. But anyways, let's fast forward a little bit. We posted the video, and this is I think 5 days after we posted the video now. Matt McNeff, Ammon's brother, calls the police. I don't really think he had a crime. He's just kind of like complaining about our video. No, for real.
Let me see.
Yeah, so it's my brother and I have a franchise called Bricks and Minifigs that we run. He was filming and making this pseudo journalistic documentary that he, that's what he's claiming it is. He released that documentary on Friday, and our lives have been nothing but hell since then. Once this YouTuber released this video, our franchisees are getting targeted harassment, review bombs. They're destroying people's lives and making it has been a nightmare.
He's not even reporting a crime to the police. He's just like complaining about how much he dislikes the video.
Aren't you supposed to call the cops when there's an emergency?
The cop is being the dude's therapist at this point.
Oh, yeah.
He's literally just calling the cop to bitch about the video.
Okay. He's trying to say that the American Port Police, our company, and the LDS Church are all colluding now in...
He's trying to say our company, the LDS Church, and the police are all colluding while they're on this cop's private cell phone talking about colluding to have him arrested.
Protecting our franchisee, and it's one big giant conspiracy. I mean, it's insanity. It's just rage bait and clickbait, and he is causing significant serious harm. This has got to slow down.
Remind me, do you know the title of the video on YouTube? I'd like to include that link on the report.
The YouTube creator is again, we feel like we tried the whole way through to do the right thing here.
This entire time, Bricks and Minifigs, they say they've been trying to do the right thing the whole time, and it's literally just been as easy as give the dude his Legos back. Like, they're just sitting in an empty store right now that you guys aren't even planning on selling anymore. It'd be so easy for you just to give them back, but...
No, the store's closed.
No, wait. So it's because they've caused so much like punitive damage now. Like they've
permanently closed. Yeah.
He's been having panic attacks. They've tried ruining his whole life and all this other stuff. Now it's a little bit more complicated than just giving the Legos back. Now, basically, our lawyers are saying that this is gonna be a slam dunk case. We could just get millions and millions of dollars out of them and just like basically bankrupt their entire company. So Bricks and Minifigs will get completely destroyed. Or
that sounds
we've given them another easy way now.
You can say they're sorry by doing the chicken dance, and I will take that as a sincere.
That was his last video.
Once I do the chicken dance, and I will know that Bricks and Minifigs is sorry.
Because he said they've already apologized. It wasn't sincere, which he did apologize. The first interaction, the guy was like super nice. He's like, I'm sorry, we'll get this straightened out. I'll give you back the Legos and the money. Just go apologize to the manager. He went and apologized. They tried to have him arrested. They didn't give the Legos back. So to make it sincere, do the chicken dance.
And we can finally move on to the next video series. It'll be awesome.
But it's weird. Bricks and Minifigs still hasn't done the chicken dance yet, which to me makes me feel like they think doing the chicken dance will cause them hundreds of millions of dollars worth of damage. They're that scared of doing the chicken dance. They think that by them doing the chicken dance, it's probably, I don't know, but they think that's a worse decision than destroying their $100 million company and all of the innocent franchises that have nothing to do with this. They think it's worth destroying all their franchises just so they don't have to do the chicken dance. Their time is running out, and they have 1 week left as of me posting this video right now, and then there's going to be a third thing. So right now, it's just give the Legos back and do the chicken dance. But if they wait 1 more week, then they're going to have to do 3 things. Whatever this street is,
just keep adding demands.
They will have to rename the street Reckless Ben Street. That way, every time Josh drives home, he's going to have to see, oh, I live on Reckless Ben Street now. This sucks, you know? Yeah, just as they're stacking the charges and throw us in jail forever, we're stacking the list of demands before they can get out of this mess.
Sounds good.
Yeah, we're going to keep stacking them and stacking them.
It's the silliest shit, too. Like, just fucking pay the guy.
Infinity after infinity, we're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep stacking those lists of demands all the way up. It never stops. Give the Legos back. It won't stop until the Legos.
I would imagine a lawyer is pretty ready to take on this case at this point. Seeing all the body cam footage, the lies that are being made, the fact that Ben has all this taped. Like, where's this threat to kill people? Where's any of this? You got security cam footage. Why didn't you submit any footage of anybody coming in saying, give us the Legos or we will shoot you with a gun?
Anyways, subscribe to Patreon. You'll get to see lots of behind the scenes, like full interviews. I just posted a full interview of us talking to the chief of police.
And you guys are like, right, so we're just trying to right the wrong, whatever that looks like.
Basically, he's saying that his police department messed up, and the whole interview on Patreon. Also, part 4 is halfway filmed. We're almost done filming part 4. It's the most insane video we've ever filmed in our entire lives. Tell him, Victor.
It is interesting that police chief finally apologized. I hope it's for the weird redactions they did, where they claimed they were trying to protect the victim, and really it was just because the cops look like idiots.
Yeah, no spoilers. It kind of sucks because we're still undercover in part 4, but part 4 is going to be super sick. Everyone's saying that this is, oh, the LEGO videos are wrapping up. I think the LEGO series is actually just started.
The LEGO series is actually just starting. Let's check this out. This has ties to the fucking raw milk cyclosporia outbreak or whatever.
Very, very weird. We do
Cyclospora is how you say it.
do not do conspiracies on the Adam Mockler feed. We only report the facts. And the facts of this most recent cyclospora outbreak are very peculiar. Now, cyclospora is the recent parasitic diarrhea bug that has been ravaging through certain states in the U.S. and even in Mexico. It has been traced back to Taylor Farms. Taylor Farms has been blamed by the FDA due to
Taylor Farms
Mexico that reportedly was traced back through via the supply chain. They were able to use supply chain surveillance to find out where this came from. They even had a positive test from a piece of lettuce that went over the border in Texas from Taylor Farms.
I'm sorry, lettuce. I said milk.
Removed that positive test. We'll get to that later in the video. But the more people looked into it, the more they realized the owner of Taylor Farms was a huge donator to MAGA. He donated a lot to the MAGA movement and to the Make America Great Again Inc. PAC. Then the Trump administration made decisions to surgically dismantle the routine surveillance for this exact type of parasite. It's a miracle we were able to trace this back to Taylor Farms in the first place because the Trump admin weakened.
It's apparently Taco Bell lettuce getting everybody diarrhea.
Ability to trace these supply chains back. Then, during the outbreak of cyclospora, the New York Times reports that Taylor Farms, the farm where this originated, hired a former Trump White House official, and then Taylor Farms executives met with the Trump White House.
Of course they did.
All a very weird timeline that I want to break down further, but just to lay the groundwork as to how bad this is getting. This reads from Public Notice, which I'll with the Trump.
March 2025, Taylor Farms contributes $1 million to Make America Great Again, Inc. That's the PAC. Days after the FDA delays the food traceability rule. The FDA informs Taylor Farms that one of its iceberg lettuce products tested positive for cyclospora, prompting a voluntary recall. During the cyclospora outbreak, the New York Times reports that Taylor Farms hires former Trump White House official. Last week, Taylor Farms executives met with White House and FDA officials where the company challenges aspects of the government's outbreak conclusions, according to the New York Times. Now, Taylor Farms says the FDA apologized, calling the positive test a false positive and stating that Taylor Farms product has tested positive for cyclospora. No products have tested positive for cyclospora. That's insane, right? Like they made money, they hired one of their guys, now suddenly they're recalling. What?
Trump White House. All a very weird timeline that I want to break down further, but just to lay the groundwork as to how bad this is getting. This reads from Public Notice, which I'll link in the description. Donald Trump is the face of hate. He is the face of war. He is the face of a pandemic. And now he is the orange, sagging face of explosive diarrhea. This month, there has been a major outbreak of cyclosporiasis, a relatively rare foodborne illness caused by microscopic single-celled parasites. Cases have been reported in 30 states, with a record-shattering 4,300 instances in Michigan alone. There are over 7,000 cases of this that have been reported in some way, and the CDC has confirmed via lab tests 1,700 of those cases. So they've confirmed 1,700, but there are 7,000 total patients that have reported this specific illness. So there's a massive surge across the United States, and the Taylor Farms investigation is a very big part of this. Taylor Farms had been building like a political footprint in Washington that we can easily connect to the weakening of these types of parameters to track this exact parasite. Public records show that Taylor Farms contributed $1 million to the pro-Trump super PAC MAGA Inc. in March of 2025, which in and of itself wouldn't be weird if that wasn't days after the FDA delayed a food tracing rule that would have imposed stricter rules on this exact parasite. Like there would have been stricter requirements on companies that manufacture, process, and pack lettuce and other high-risk foods. Now, Taylor Farms and former Trump officials have created this incestuous relationship where they're all working together, and it seems very weird. The CDC identified shredded iceberg lettuce at Taco Bell as one cause of infection in Indiana, Kentucky, Michigan, Ohio, and West Virginia. This is a very important line. Be careful if you're eating Taco Bell. This is a very important line right here. Be careful if you're eating Taco Bell. I'm not trying to fearmonger or worry anybody. Everyone will be fine. Nobody has died from this yet, but be careful. Look up the lists of foods that this is infiltrated and just be careful. That's all I would say. I care about you guys, and we all want to, be as healthy as possible. The restaurant took swift action to remove the produce, but there may well be other sources. Initially, the FDA said the Taco Bell lettuce came from Taylor Farms. This week, it said the test was a false positive, a mistake that doesn't inspire.
Of course.
The FDA came out and they said that it was a false positive, but that Taylor Farms.
This is how, like, people look the other way or say, well, they all try to get rich. Or they're fucking with your food now, right? They're poisoning people. this just makes them sick, right? It's not like it's a fucking deadly disease, but still, they're poisoning people, and they're making the evidence disappear as long as you pay the right people, hire the right people, and know the right people.
Farms is still likely to blame because they tracked it through the supply chain. Taco Bell themselves made a statement saying, "We want you to hear it from us. We take your health and safety seriously and have removed all affected Taylor Farms lettuce from Taco Bell stores." So they're trying to be proactive about it, but why are they apologizing on like a notes app? What is this weird Tumblr notes app apology? But to continue here, Midas touch points out, worth noting about it, but why are they apologizing?
We want you to hear it from us. We take your health and safety seriously and have removed all affected Taylor Farms lettuce from Taco Bell stores. So go ahead and enjoy your Taco Bell today. You always got us. We always got you. See you in the drive-thru.
On like a notes app. What is this weird Tumblr notes app apology? But to continue here, Midas touch points out, worth noting, Taylor Farms contributed $1 million to Make America Great Again Inc. in March of 2025. Then Taylor Farms says, yesterday, the FDA apologized to us. Yesterday, the FDA informed Taylor Fresh Foods that one of its iceberg lettuce products from central Mexico had confirmed positive test for cyclospora. Today, we were informed that the FDA made a mistake and that this was a false positive. So while the FDA did say this was a false positive, they doubled down and said they still believe that Taylor Farms is responsible for the cyclospora parasite diarrhea outbreak. So it's a really convoluted narrative coming from the FDA, but sometimes science does update, sometimes science does change. That is part of the scientific process. However, this entire timeline, when put together, is rather odd. And by the way, if you appreciate us bringing the truth at a time when there are so many lies, then make sure you join the Mockler Media Squad, the Mockler Mafia, if you will. You can subscribe.
Pretty fucking insane. Oh, I hope you're all right, Mona. Did this happen like a while back, or are you talking about recently?
Video. I have your guys' back, and I appreciate you guys for all the support on the other end. Thank you so much. So, read this right here. In March of 2025, Taylor Farms contributes $1 million to MAGA Inc., only days after the FDA delays a food traceability rule. The FDA informs Taylor Farms that one of its iceberg lettuce products tested positive for cyclospora, prompting a voluntary recall. During the cyclospora outbreak, the New York Times reports Taylor Farms hires a former Trump White House official. Last week, Taylor Farms executives meet with White House and FDA officials where the company challenges aspects of the government's outbreak conclusions, according to the New York Times. Now, Taylor Farms says the FDA apologized, calling the positive test a false positive and stating that no Taylor Farms product has actually tested positive for cyclospora and that they are just using supply chains. Then, Senator John Ossoff comes out with a scathing letter towards RFK Jr. that kind of blows the entire thing open. Senator John Ossoff has been on fire lately. He said, "Dear Secretary Kennedy, last year, you terminated the U.S. CDC Foodborne Disease Active Surveillance Network, required surveillance of Cyclospora cayetensis. I hope I said that right. The parasite responsible for cyclosporiasis. And now, a cyclosporiasis outbreak sweeps the nation. Your foolish and self-indulgent demolition of critical public health programs puts Americans at risk. The Trump admin is actively undermining food safety, and this is genuinely very informative stuff for the public. The Trump admin does not care about science or safety or regulations. They care about profit first and making sure their donors are happy." But it says right here, to date,
on July 1st, damn.
645 cases.
I'm glad you're all right.
Pending cases waiting for the CDC to confirm.
The dehydration can be really, really, really bad for you.
Yes, and it takes time for the CDC to confirm the cases. Americans are suffering from severe diarrhea and painful complications. Across the country, parents feel increasingly uncertain about how and whether they can shop safely for their families. This is unacceptable. Please answer the following questions. Has the CDC's food net been restored to require tracking of cyclospora? If not, why? Why did you terminate the tracking of cyclospora in the first place? What is the status of the food safety investigations to determine the source and scope of the outbreak? Let me play for you this really brilliant video made by a TikToker named Black Belt Babe, in which she breaks down the entire timeline of Taylor Farms' weird behavior. I'll also link this in the description because this deserves credit. I want you to watch this until the end.
From explosive dookie booty diarrhea to onions that kill, Taylor Farms has been at the center of multiple deadly outbreaks, but they're never held accountable for it due to their billionaire CEO's political connections. Let's get into it. So right now, Taylor Farms is under federal investigation for its role in a massive cyclospora outbreak that's linked to shredded lettuce served at Taco Bell. Now, cyclospora can cause weeks of severe, explosive, watery diarrhea, cramping, and bloating. So far, about 7,000 people have been infected across more than 30 different states, and at least 141 people have been hospitalized so far. Michigan is considered the epicenter with over 4,300 confirmed cases, and this outbreak is on track to be the worst outbreak on record. But this ain't Taylor Farms' first rodeo, y'all. In 2013, a cyclospora outbreak traced to one of their plants sickened more than 600 people across 25 states. In 2024, their slivered onion served on McDonald's quarter pounders caused an E. coli outbreak that hospitalized dozens and killed at least one person. Then, in late 2024, the FDA and CDC investigated another E. coli outbreak linked to Taylor Farms' romaine lettuce that sickened 89 people across 15 states, with 36 people hospitalized, 7 suffering kidney failure, and 1 death. But the agencies never publicly named Taylor Farms as a source. But the company's disregard for food safety is just the tip of the iceberg. In late 2025, OSHA hit Taylor Farms, New Jersey, with a $1.12 million fine after a worker was killed while cleaning machinery. Inspectors discovered 16 willful and repeated safety violations for failing to implement basic protocols that cut power to equipment during cleaning. And this follows a clear pattern: a 2017 death at their California plant, a 2018 electrocution fatality in Illinois, and a 2020 partial amputation in Texas. And then there's the child labor allegations. Federal investigators discovered children as young as 14 years old working overnight shifts cleaning dangerous machinery and using hazardous chemicals at a Taylor Farms facility in Tennessee. Now, the company claimed it was unaware. Now, the exploitation doesn't even stop there. Between 2019 and 2023, two HR managers at Taylor Farms subsidiary orchestrated a massive $3 million visa fraud scheme, stealing the identities of vulnerable Mexican migrant workers who had already returned home. Both of them pleaded no contest to felony embezzlement in June 2026. The company has also faced several civil rights lawsuits for forcing black employees into separate break areas. And one other incident, managers ordered workers to keep working through a toxic chlorine gas leak. 20 people were hospitalized, and in response, workers tried to unionize. The company responded by union busting. The NLRB found the company illegally spied on workers, fired union organizers, and threatened immigrant employees with ICE. Taylor Farms is a multi-billion-dollar company. Its products are literally everywhere, y'all, including McDonald's, Taco Bell,
really shitty company.
Chick-fil-A, Subway, Costco, Walmart, Kroger, Target, and thousands of schools and restaurants. Its CEO, Bruce Taylor, is a billionaire Republican mega donor who has poured millions into Trump-aligned super PACs and conservative causes. The company has benefited from regulatory shifts, which include but are not limited to a weakened NLRB, non-mandatory COVID safety guidance, and federal agencies that have, in multiple instances, failed to publicly name Taylor Farms as a source of these deadly outbreaks. Now, here we are again, right? Another outbreak that is linked to Taylor Farms, and it seems like they just keep getting away with it. The system ain't broken, y'all. It's working exactly as designed for those who can afford to buy their way out of accountability.
Really solid, informative breakdown. It's a fast-paced run-through of all of the ways Taylor Farms has screwed up and then avoided accountability, culminating in the cyclospora outbreak that we currently see ravaging the United States. I really enjoyed that breakdown right there, and it gets even worse. This is coming from CNN. They break down the cuts affecting the federal cyclospora response. So we're moving on from the actual outbreak and the tracking of this. Here are the cuts that are hurting the response to it.
His team had been cut from 11 to 3. They also had been impacted by a loss of funding from USAID. Thinking about parasites, that also includes malaria. And so that affected the work that they were able to do, some of the shared resources there as well. And then, of course, the 25-ish% reduction in the CDC workforce overall last year. So they lost the specialists, but they also lost the folks who could come on board in sort of an all-hands-on-deck approach to this. That source is telling our team potentially slowing this down.
Absolute incompetence from this administration. And I don't know how I haven't brought this up in this video yet, but this parallels COVID very much so. There was a pandemic task force in the United States that Obama had formed to rapid response to stuff, to track this stuff, to take care of a pandemic like COVID. Donald Trump cut that because he's anti-science, and it led to an awful COVID outbreak that only spiraled as he continued to deny the science at the time. We all lived through it. I don't even have to recap Donald Trump's behavior during COVID and his incessant downplaying, saying it's going to go away in 1 to 2 weeks. It's going away in 1 to 2 weeks. I mean, it was quite literally a stressful time for many Americans. Read this from the New York Times. As the investigation intensifies, Taylor Farms, among the nation's largest producers of salad grains and vegetables, has hired a former Trump White House official. Now, the implication here is that this is how lobbying works most of the time. You hire an official who worked at some sort of company or in some campaign or at a White House, and then you hire them for their access. You're paying for their name access, for their recognition, for their trust within the administration. You are buying access. In a meeting on Thursday evening with the White House and FDA officials, companies
just openly, blatantly fucking corrupt.
Doubt on the official's conclusion, according to an administration official who was not clear to discuss the matter. A spokeswoman from Taylor Farms said that its representatives met with the White House and FDA officials to discuss what it viewed as shortfalls in the FDA and CDC's outbreak response process. Wow. So Taylor Farms is going on pure offense. They're saying that the meeting was just to discuss shortfalls from the FDA, actually, not about Taylor Farms' potential role in this outbreak. Absolutely despicable. Can I just end this off by saying, while this is all happening, the Iran war is still spiraling and Americans are struggling in multiple ways. Not only with the diarrhea outbreak, which I know it sounds like funny or whatever, but
fucking drywall mud all over.
Americans are being harmed by this. People who are supposed to be taking care of their families, people who are supposed to be thriving in what's supposed to be the best country on the planet, according to MAGA, are struggling with a level 1 outbreak that could have been prevented with easy access to tracking this stuff. And now we are in another endless war that these politicians are stuck defending as more U.S. soldiers die, as gas prices continue to spike, and as we are stuck in this situation. So Speaker of the House Mike Johnson gets asked directly, hey, the war with Iran is now 5 months in, and the U.S. death toll has surpassed the withdrawal from Afghanistan. At what point are you willing to put an authorized use of military force on the floor? Because this is illegal. We are striking illegally.
The administration is working very hard. The commander-in-chief and the whole Department of War are working very hard to bring this to a resolution. There's a lot of discussions about how that will be done. We're all
more money
watching those developments, of course. I don't think an AUMF is in order right now. I think we need to bring this to a resolution.
Dude, John Ossoff with Keg's Breath talking about basically that they were militarily incapacitated. And he's like, have they been militarily incapacitated in the last 3 months? Is that what you're saying? Or are you saying that you need more money to attack them? Which is it?
Solution. Look, we've been trying to bring this to a resolution. Trump quite literally can't because Iran has the leverage via the Strait of Hormuz. I'm going to leave it there. If you appreciate these videos and you
one more. Let's watch Voidzilla go over this. This is the Joe Rogan Epstein stuff.
Welcome to the Epstein Experience
with J.D. Vance.
J.D. Vance, the vice president, has gone on the world's largest podcast to slip us some propaganda. They're hoping you won't notice because the cover-up, that was 6 months ago. Now, the rewrite has started. I hope you've forgotten some of those details because you're going to need to misremember everything in the Epstein files in order to believe what they're trying to sell us. And so you got to be careful of the podcast these days. The times have changed. It's no longer bros talking. All these these powerful people who used to go try to spin stuff on cable TV have now realized this is the new place to sell your propaganda. It's not on cable TV. Nobody's there. It's on the Joe Rogan Experience. You got to be skeptical of all these guys who go on the show. I mean, except that guy, obviously. Wait, click off that. Some of these guys you could trust. Some of them, you know, they just have the right look to them. I think you could trust them. But today I just want to break down all the claims made regarding the Epstein files, starting with what I thought was the most egregious one, and that centrally explains why they're really talking about this. What their new line of attack is on the Epstein files. They didn't cover it up. They just mishandled the comms.
Oh, no.
Like, we absolutely screwed up the comms of the Epstein files, like we just did. But do I think the reason we screwed up the comms is because we were trying to hide something? No.
How convenient. They didn't cover it up, obstruct, lie about what was at the Epstein files until they were forced by the Senate and House of Representatives in order to release it. No. They just screwed up the comms. They just didn't know how to roll that out.
Well, it's obvious that Epstein was a sick man.
Yes, but if people want to say we mishandled the Epstein release, guilty.
Oh, that's fine. You can say we mishandled it. Did we do it on purpose? No, not at all.
We did mishandle it, especially the communications of it.
What do you think should have been done?
I think that we should have just dropped everything at the very beginning. And like, obviously it takes a little time to review the stuff, to find the stuff, to redact things where you have victims and so forth. But we should have just done it as quickly as possible.
Oh, you mean like the thing you all ran on? That didn't occur to you to do it? There was no other reason that you guys hid it for months and months. Like, I don't even know who believes this, except for people who just take this stuff at face value. But I want to show you definitively, you should not take the vice president at face value. J.D. Vance, in this interview, admits to things that tells you that he is a propagandist. He's not just a guy talking about his true beliefs on an issue. And the way we know this is because of how he talks about Iran, where specifically when asked about his real opinion, he says, look, I'm not a commentator. He's just here to execute for the president.
I mean, my attitude towards this man, as you know, is the vice president. I'm not a public commentator. Like, my job is to give the best advice I can to the president of the United States. But once the president makes a decision, my attitude towards it is I try to make it as successful as possible.
So that's what he's doing here with the Epstein files. Look, they covered it up. They made that decision. And
not a commentator.
Here to try to make it.
I'm here on a podcast to talk about my beliefs and feelings and morals and the things I'll stand up for, but I'm not a commentator.
Sound as palatable as possible to you, the viewer. And it's not just J.D. Vance that says this. New York Times has actual reporting on Inside the White House freakout of the Epstein files. J.D. Vance is literally quoted in that piece talking about the Epstein files, saying this is a huge problem. When talking about the president and Epstein's relationship, there was some reporting that was coming out. J.D. Vance was trying to think of gambits to try to get people off the scent. Quote, he thought that the White House should enlist Tucker Carlson to interview Epstein's longtime girlfriend and co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell in prison. It might help the president if Maxwell was willing to state that Trump had not been a part of wrongdoing with Epstein. Well, by the way, that happened, but just with Todd Blanche, not Tucker Carlson. So we literally know internally, JD was saying, hey, this is a huge problem. Hey, we got to deal with this. We got to, maybe get Tucker Carlson to interview Ghislaine Maxwell. We got to find a way to convince the public that this is no big deal, right? He's literally part of the cover-up. Then he goes on the Joe Rogan Experience to do his spin move, right? Now, if you're wondering, well, how can we trust that New York Times reporting, right? Well, actually, JD Vance quotes it. This was during a section where JD Vance, the I'm not a commentator guy, was trying to establish his bona fides with Joe Rogan's audience. He goes, hey, look, I'm a conspiracy theorist too. And he quotes the article.
You and I could literally do 2 episodes about this. I've gone down to every rabbit hole. There's this funny New York Times story that's somewhat true, somewhat false, but where Susie Wiles, the White House chief of staff, says, well, we know JD's a conspiracy theorist on this. Like, I am, actually. I've gone down every rabbit hole here.
So JD Vance says, hey, look, guys, hey, I'm just like you. I may not be a commentator. I may be here to just play spin, but I'm like, I've been down every rabbit hole. Nothing to see here, guys. We just mishandled the comms. But if you look at it, that's just a direct quote from the New York Times article. Now, of course, yes, JD says, oh, yeah, some of it's true, some of it's false.
Somewhat true, somewhat false.
But which part? You're quoted in there covering the thing up. Was that the part that's fake? The part which says you're a real conspiracy theorist like the rest of us? Oh, no. That's true. Everything else where you were involved in a cover-up involving the White House, where you were directly floating ideas to
none of that's true.
Epstein's co-conspirator, not to get to the truth, but in order to exonerate the president. That's all probably fake. That's all probably nonsense. But it gets even worse, because one of the things JD talks about is how he's thought a lot about how to discredit conspiracy theories. Watch.
One of the ways you discredit a conspiracy theory, I thought about this a lot, is try to hide it. Another way you discredit conspiracy theory is by flooding the zone.
Did you guys just hear that? He goes, I've thought a lot about it. One of the ways to discredit a conspiracy theory is to try to hide it. They did that. They actually did that. They told us, hey, there's no evidence to predicate an investigation against any uncharged third parties. We looked at all the documents. Nothing to see here, guys. We're not going to release it. And then the second way is to flood the zone, which is you just throw so much unsubstantiated stuff out here, you discredit the conspiracy theory entirely.
Another way you discredit conspiracy theory is by flooding the zone. So one of the things I've tried to do when looking at all this stuff is to try to understand sort of where it fits in and to, try to separate the real from the fake.
Now, is that what they did next? Well, actually, yes, it is. The way they released the files was in this giant dump of millions of documents. Not only that, Vance, in the New York Times article, he says it's somewhat true, somewhat false, says unsubstantiated allegations and anecdotes about Trump should go out, Vance argued. They were going to surface regardless, and if the administration published first, it would demonstrate good faith and take the oxygen out of conspiracy theories. Guys, he literally tried to do the thing he's telling you on Joe Rogan. Oh, I thought a lot about this. This is how you discredit a conspiracy theory. You release a bunch of unsubstantiated.
Oh, Dr. J, if you're still here, I saw Book Girl's comment. She's not banned or removed or nothing. And I've seen her recently. It's probably been about a week to 2 weeks, somewhere at 7 to 14 days. I saw her comment, but she's not banned. She's not on the banned list. I don't know. It's weird, isn't it?
Stuff, so they don't pay attention to the stuff that is substantiated. And this is my problem with these types of interviews. Look, I don't think there's anything wrong with interviewing the vice president, but you have to take into account that he's not just a bro. He's not just your buddy, right? This is a guy who tells you he's not here to commentate. He's not here to give his real opinion. He's here to propagandize for what the president's agenda is. Here's a guy who says he's thought a lot about discrediting conspiracy theories.
One of the ways you discredit conspiracy theory, I thought about this a lot.
Here's a guy who corroborates reporting where he is directly conspiring to discredit the Epstein conspiracy theory. But we'll just let him get away with saying he's just like one of us, bro. He's gone down every rabbit hole.
I'm like one of the OG Epstein conspiracy theorists. I've probably gone down every single rabbit hole. We could go down most of them today.
And so look, with that out of the way, I just want to debunk some of the specific claims that J.D. Vance made. One, he tried to say, hey, look, the real problem was all with Alec Acosta back in 2007, 2008 with the prosecution.
Look, the original sin of the Epstein investigation, and obviously I'm biased here, but it was not what Donald Trump and the administration did in 2025. It was, you have to go back to 2007, 2008. The original Alex Acosta investigation of Jeffrey Epstein, where he basically dropped the federal...
Then Trump promoted the guy, right, made him the Secretary of Labor, gave him a reward.
Getting prosecuted.
An FBI agent was removed from her position because she wanted to pursue charges against Epstein, believing it was a bigger case. And Acosta's like, nope, fuck you. I'll look into it. Then all of a sudden she got moved to a different position.
On some sort of local thing. But the original warrant, who did the original warrant back in 2008? What was he looking for? What was he allowed to look for? What were they collecting? It was not looking at a broader conspiracy. So that happens, okay? Epstein gets pinched. I think he goes to prison, or maybe this is when he was on house arrest. But like anything that exists.
Maybe an update.
From 80s and 90s up to 2000s.
I wish I knew when she was around so I could look into it while she was trying to comment if it wasn't working or whatever. I don't know. If someone sees her in chat or sees her around at some point while I'm live, not just in Discord, let me know.
Anything that existed that we didn't get back then was disappeared. Right. So like when people say, has what you've seen on the inside make you think that that Epstein never blackmailed people or that Epstein never engaged in broader trafficking? No, absolutely not. What I have seen, and I've looked at most of the files, is that there just wasn't dispositive evidence. And if that dispositive evidence ever existed, it was probably destroyed after 2006, 2007.
JD, I got to give him credit. He's so good at this because some of what he's saying is like half true. Alex Acosta did mess up the investigation. There was a completely ridiculous plea deal done, a sweetheart deal, and there wasn't enough evidence collected. That's all true. But here's the big lie. There was enough, and still is enough, in the Epstein files to predicate an investigation into uncharged third parties. There just absolutely is. There is evidence of a guy still at large that is talking about bringing girls over from Eastern Europe very clearly in order to traffic them. There are powerful people mentioned in these files where we don't have those people's records, right? Because he's saying, oh, we don't have enough from Epstein stuff. Well, has it ever occurred to you guys that you could investigate other people? But that's not happening because that's not the goal here. The goal has been, and we saw it in the New York Times reporting, which J.D. Vance corroborated, was to bury this story as quickly as possible and move on. Meanwhile, they throw up their hands and they go, oh, we just don't have enough evidence, to lock anybody up today. He doesn't explain why they can't go start investigations tomorrow. It's kind of incredible to think in hindsight that in 2019, the government, specifically the FBI, had 10 co-conspirators they were investigating, and now we have none. And this brings me to my last point, which is about some of the victims who were not interviewed for all of this. One of the big revelations towards the end of the Epstein release was the fact that the DOJ has not met with many of the people who were trafficked to Epstein. That's something you would think would be the first stop if you're trying to get to the bottom of something like this, rather than interviewing Ghislaine Maxwell and then cutting her a sweetheart deal to move her to a nice minimum security prison.
Todd Blanche has never attempted to listen to us, the crime victims. Survivors in this room repeatedly asked to meet with Todd Blanche through multiple channels. He never responded. Yesterday, he said he would meet with us, with our attorneys, if they were present. But let's be clear, that was the first time that was ever communicated to us before yesterday.
Yeah, Todd Blanche is the top of the DOJ right now. He's like the guy who technically is in charge of all of this. According to that woman, Todd Blanche only recently said he would even be willing to meet with the victims, and that was because he was very directly asked about this, where he couldn't really get out of it.
I have never said I will not meet with survivors.
Will you meet with these 10 survivors? I'm asking you on the record.
If they have lawyers, as you know, I'm prohibited from meeting directly with them. I have met with counsel for survivors, as has many people in the Department of Justice, over 30. But if they are represented by counsel, we will work with their counsel. If they don't have a lawyer, I will certainly make arrangements to make sure the right people at the Department of Justice meet with them. Absolutely.
Will you get it done within the next 30 days? That each
I
of
will
these
get it done
survivors?
today.
What do you mean today? We're talking 2026, bro. We've been talking about the Epstein files for literally years now, and as the lead guy, you didn't think of this? It's only when you're being pushed to meet with survivors that would even occur to you that they might have information on the people who committed these awful acts against them. I mean, that never occurred to me. I just don't believe it. And that's the thing, when you actually hear some of these survivors talk, a lot of them will say that it's been a pattern of not investigating.
Jess, why do you think it was so hard for him to just say, yes, I will? Especially given the fact that we know Todd Blanche flew down to Florida and met with Ghislaine Maxwell, of all people, in person.
One of the tactics we've seen is avoiding investigation. So, for example, I gave leads back in 2019 for two people to follow, one that had been in Jeffrey Epstein's orbit for over 18 years, and one that could corroborate that she also knew the same person. And I know directly that those leads were never followed.
I mean, mean, isn't this insane? We have it from the actual survivors, who, by the way, in some of these cases, the only reason they're public now is because they were doxxed by the DOJ. And so now they're like, well, screw it. I've had my story made public forcibly. So now I'm going to have to just go public. But all of these things just point to one direction. We have buried this story repeatedly. And the vice president, coincidentally, is going on the world's #1 podcast to try to pretend that is not the case, that they did all they could. But if only Alex Acosta would have done more back in 2007, now they just can't do their job because their hands are tied. So yeah, basically the way I see it, there are two sides in this story. One side actually experienced these awful acts and is telling us that our government has not been investigating these crimes fully. And the other side has told you that they're not a real commentator. They're here to just spin the narrative. They have told you they've thought a lot about how to discredit conspiracy theories, and they have half verified, half denied a report that has them conspiring to do all the things. So yeah, I think this was a pretty obvious one, but I wanted to talk about it anyways to counteract some of this ridiculous propaganda. See ya.
It goes on fucking Joe Rogan and talk about the goddamn Epstein fumble. Let's see what we can get out of this.
$1 billion more on gas since this war.
This Hegseth going in front of Congress asked for billions of dollars, billions of dollars to go to war with Iran. Billions of dollars to go to war with Iran. And before we do that, let's do this.
Iranian missiles have struck a U.S. base in Jordan for at least the second time this week, amid reports of multiple U.S. casualties. What you're seeing here is new footage of two Iranian intermediate-range ballistic
missiles. This is not the one I want.
IRBMs bypassing U.S. air defense and appearing to impact on the Al-Azraq air base in Jordan. Now, while many U.S. bases throughout the region had been previously evacuated,
this is the one I want.
So the United States is ramping up combat operations in Iran, but things might look a little different this time. A U.S. official just stated, quote, "We don't have enough air defense and long-range munitions to safely sustain operations." Additionally, the Yemen-based Houthis have now joined the conflict, earlier today announcing a blockade of Saudi Arabia effective immediately. And last night, the Iranian-backed Shiite militias across Iraq and Syria warned that they too will begin targeting U.S. bases if American strikes in Iran continue. And by all accounts, those strikes are not only set to continue, but to escalate here in coming days. In fact, President Trump a few moments ago issued a statement saying, quote, "Every time Iran kills an American soldier, they will pay for that killing many times over. This directive has been passed on to Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Daniel Kaine, and every leader in the military." So quick note on U.S. casualties.
So that's Trump's response, is to go to Twitter. Every time Iran kills an American soldier, they will pay for that killing many times over. This directive is passed on to Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Daniel Kaine, and every leader in the military, President Donald J. Trump.
This directive has been passed on to Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Chairman of the Joint...
Oh, there she is.
Chiefs of Staff Daniel Kaine, and every leader...
I don't know. I looked, but girl, somebody said it might have been updating the app, but you've never been blocked as far as I can tell.
In the military. So quick note on U.S. casualties.
Basically, if I go into my studio and I go to like moderation or something under settings, it just gives me a list of everyone I've ever banned before. And it's not in alphabetical order. It's not in like a timeline of when I banned them or whatever. So I just have to read through them. So I do miss them every once in a while. But I looked the list over a few times and didn't see you.
An update as the Pentagon has released a name and pictures of two of the fallen for the last...
Glad you're here, though.
Here is First Lieutenant Tyler James Feehan, 25
Missed you.
Of Hawaii. Lieutenant Feehan was killed in an Iranian missile strike on the U.S. Air Base in Jordan. He was assigned to the 2nd Battalion, 55th Air Defense Artillery Regiment, 32nd Army Air Missile Defense Command out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Also killed in that strike was Private Isabella Gonzalez, 19 years old, of Carrollton, Texas. Private Gonzalez was assigned to the 1st Battalion, 57th Air Defense Artillery Regiment, 57th Air Defense Artillery Regiment of the 52nd Air Defense Artillery Brigade, 10th Army Air Missile Defense Command, based out of Ansbach, Germany. Additionally, when the casualties from that strike were announced, we heard 2 killed in action and 1 missing. The Pentagon updated yesterday that they have found unidentified remains at the strike location, and an examination process is ongoing to verify those remains. The Pentagon yesterday also announced that another U.S. service member was killed in northern Iraq on July 18th during a controlled detonation of unexploded ordnance from a downed Iranian one-way attack drone. That brings the count from the most recent Iranian strikes to 3 Americans killed in action.
How do you get killed when during a controlled demo of a drone that didn't go off?
Missing, pending the verification of their remains, and the numbers of wounded have varied quite a bit. The most reliable that I've seen has been likely a couple dozen. Now, turning to the Washington Post article discussing the likely escalation here in the coming days. They quoted a senior U.S. official familiar with internal discussions saying, quote, "The U.S. is planning for a wider war." He added that the Pentagon was increasing the number of military aircraft in the region, but the official, speaking on the condition of anonymity, cautioned that the expansion of U.S. operations will be limited by dwindling stockpiles of air defense and long-range munitions and constraints on the ability to surge more troops and aircraft into the area because of battle damage. And we'll show some of that battle damage here in a moment. Quite a bit of satellite imagery coming out from Iran showing what appears to be significant damage at, in this case, the U.S. Air Base in Jordan. The official said, quote,
"We're expanding operations, not slowing down, not they've been decimated, not they're incapacitated. We're expanding operations.
And I don't think the White House is aware of that, end quote. Now, the munitions shortage conversation is difficult because you're working. We do not have enough to safely sustain operations, and I don't think the White House is aware of that, end quote. In this case, the U.S. Air Base in Jordan. The official said, quote, we do not have enough to safely sustain operations, and I don't think the White House is aware of that. In this case, the U.S. Air Base in...
Listen closely.
The official said, quote, we do not have enough to safely sustain operations, and I don't think the White House is aware of that, end quote. Now, the munitions Air Base in Jordan.
We do not have enough munitions to sustain this operation. I don't think the White House is aware of that.
The official said, quote, we do not have enough to safely sustain operations, and I don't think the White House is aware of that, end quote. Now, the munitions shortage conversation is difficult because you're working with a lot of sets of data that is not publicly available. So we don't know how many munitions we've utilized. Let's stick with interceptors for a second, air defense interceptors. We don't know how many we had on hand. We don't know how many we have utilized. We don't know how many we need for the future of the Iran operation, and we don't know how many we need for contingency operations. Like, do we have enough to not just fight Iran right now, but be able to fight China over Taiwan if that kicked off next week? Would we be able to do that and deter Russian aggression into, say, a NATO member state next month? So these are the conversations that the military planners are having. When we say we have a shortage of munitions, I would not read into that we don't have enough air defense interceptors to protect our troops in the Middle East. My read on that is that it's probably we don't have the ideal amount to spread around the entire world, U.S. troops on a global basis at this point. That said, we have certainly chewed through a lot of long-range munitions and a lot of air defense interceptors, and there's a possibility that shortage and maybe spreading those thinner than expected has led to some of these strikes, some of these Iranian missiles in recent days making it through U.S. air base. I mean, we've got some imagery here that's coming out showing the effects of those strikes in Jordan, and it looks like one of these appears to be a containerized housing unit, kind of the barracks setup, if you will, with quite a few of those destroyed in this strike. There was another facility, a hangar, I believe, near an airfield that looks like it took a direct hit, and then a third that just came out a few moments ago showing what appears to be another aircraft hangar hit. Now, Iran is claiming that they hit like F-35s and F-16s inside of some of these buildings. I haven't seen any verification of that, but this last one here, it at least looks like a couple drones, likely MQ-9 Reapers sitting out on the tarmac, were damaged in this strike. So it's a bit concerning that Iranian missiles are getting through, and from what we can tell, I mean, that looks like they hit their target. Right? We don't know exactly what they were aiming at, but that is directly on top of some of these buildings on the airfield. Now, we are seeing a continuation of U.S. military assets flow back into the Middle East, so we do have substantial force presence there, but Iranian attacks throughout the region are continuing.
I'm glad you're back, book girl.
48 hours, Kuwait announced that then
Books Maxing.
Once again,
That's a cool name.
Desalination facility hit for the second day in a row.
Very funny.
Those are the facilities that make the water drinkable for a large portion of folks in Kuwait and a number of different countries in the Middle East. That is a catastrophic situation if Iran continues to go that route. Bahrain earlier today targeted once more. Looked like a number of Iranian missiles fired during daylight hours again. Not great. Don't want to see that. They seem rather confident moving these launchers out into the open to conduct these launches, these missile launches, while the sun is up. And then not long ago, we got notification that at least 2 ships have been struck in the Strait of Hormuz. So the traffic through the Strait of Hormuz is back to effectively zero. It is, for all intents and purposes, shut down. The IRGC released some pictures and video showing one of these tankers getting hit. They put out an announcement saying last night, 2 oil tankers that were acting illegally and intended to enter and exit the dangerous and accident-prone southern route of the Strait of Hormuz exploded and were prevented from moving. As long as America's evil actions continue in the region, this route will not be safe for the passage of chemical fertilizers or even a single cubic meter of oil and gas. So if it hasn't been clear quite yet, it's clear now. Iran's plan is to completely shut down the Strait of Hormuz. The only ships that they will allow passage is without attacking is moving along the northern approach close to the Iranian shore. But it's not clear that any ships or very many ships at least are going to be willing to risk that at all right now. Now, in terms of the expansion of hostilities, this is, you gotta have a caveat on this, be asterisk on the end of this one, because it's 2 parties that have made threats before and we haven't really seen them get involved. It's a bit of a wild card that Iran has in their back pocket. The first is the Islamic Resistance of Iraq. This is a group of Iranian-backed Shiite militias across Iraq and Syria. They do have a fair amount of firepower. They have a lot of drones. They have a significant amount of fighters available to them. They largely sat out the first phase of this war. They issued a statement last night saying, quote, the Islamic Resistance reiterates and emphasizes that it will directly join the campaign against the American enemy if it continues to expand its aggression against the Islamic Republic, and that it will act with strength and determination against all American interests and bases in the country and the region. A quick note on that is if you go back to, there were, I think it was 2 American service members killed during the attack on a tower in Jordan a couple of years ago, and the U.S. said we are going to respond. And the response was pretty overwhelming and killed a lot of the senior officials in a variety of these militias under the Islamic Resistance of Iraq. We saw, by and large, those groups just back down and say, we're just not going to get involved anymore. We're going to let this play out. Generally, the same took place during the initial phases of this war, but it wouldn't be shocking if they sense weakness to want to get in on the quote victory. I mean, no doubt Iran has declared victory a little prematurely in this conflict, but you can see a scenario where these entities maybe are less concerned about the U.S. going after them if they think, especially, that we're on the verge of maybe leaving some of these bases in the region. This could be viewed by the Islamic Resistance of Iraq as an opportunity to kind of plant their flag and take some.
They're going to run us out of the whole fucking Middle East.
Ownership if they think the U.S. is on the verge.
Trump claiming he won.
Stepping out of the Middle East
somehow.
It's reading a lot into this, but just something to keep back in mind. The other one here is the Houthis. So the Yemen-based group, Iranian-backed, they just announced a few hours ago that a blockade of Saudi Arabia is in place effective immediately. We should mention that as of this recording, there appears to be no impact on ships moving through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. They issued this warning. They said it is fully in effect. We haven't seen them enforce it quite yet in terms of drones or missiles or unmanned surface vessels or raiding parties attacking any vessels in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. But real quick, it's worth bringing up a map to show how kind of precarious of a situation the Houthis could bring to the table here. So map here, we got Iran. As we zoom in, Iran at the top part of the screen, Persian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz. When we zoom out a little bit to give you an idea, with all of this effectively shut down.
Trump's still bitching about the SAVE Act. Does anybody here, the election's always the 2nd week in November. Does anybody here think that thousands, tens of thousands of individual municipalities that count votes that allow you to vote, that collect your votes, the type that can implement some type of brand new law before. Honestly, I think he wants it to pass with such a short deadline that it won't be implemented correctly. And then if they don't do well, he can try to invalidate the whole thing. Well, they didn't follow the law, and they didn't check this, they didn't do that, and this wasn't even set up, and they didn't pull this system, they didn't do that. There's no way. It could take years just to implement. I used to know a guy who owned a company. He was like a CEO of a company. He was a pretty wealthy guy. I wasn't like friends with him. I did some work for him a couple times at his house. And that's his entire company was literally just implementation of new policies for much larger companies. Like they had to think of everything, cross every T, dot every I. Well, what about this scenario? What if this person? What if this pregnant person? Or what if this, this person that has their mom just died? Or what if any type of new policy had to be implemented? They would go to these gigantic corporations and say, how can we implement this the quickest, the fastest, with the least friction, and make it apply to everybody no matter what situation without any outliers happening. And he made millions of dollars doing that with his company. It's hard to implement something like that on that big, even if it's just a small thing. Like, okay, we're going from for the last 50 years, someone's had to read this sheet and put a check in this box. Now, instead of that, reading this sheet, putting a check in this box on each person does 1,000 of these applications. Now what they need to do is they need to read this sheet. If they agree with it, they need to fill in the box completely and initial beside it. And these thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people have done it the same way for the last 20 fucking years, and you're asking them to change something that fucking simple. It's incredibly hard. But coming up with a brand new, unique, kick it to the states of how you want to do this, but you got to validate every fucking... It's not going to get done. There's no goddamn way. It could take years to implement that and have it 100% accountability on it.
Down over the course of the last couple of months, traffic through the Red Sea has kind of been a savior, and one of those reasons is Saudi Arabia able to export a lot of their products through the Red Sea. The Houthis down here in Yemen have the ability, if they want to shut down the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. They've done that before and came under a pretty significant attack from the U.S. and Israel, but they still maintain that capability. Right now, they're saying that Saudi Arabia will not be allowed to move anything at all. So it sounds like they're going to try to affect Saudi exports to the north, but certainly through the south. So if the Persian Gulf and Strait of Hormuz is shut down, and we start to see any sort of reduction in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait and the Gulf of Oman and the Red Sea, you start to kind of have an exponential effect on, say, gas availability, fuel availability around the world. Of course, head over to Sal and what's going on with shipping. I'm sure he's got a much deeper dive into the Houthi threat here. If not now, he will here shortly. All right, so in terms of things to watch for here in the coming days, 3 things stand out to me. First off, the U.S. strikes. Are we expanding the target set? Will the strikes that are carried out, tomorrow or the following day look all that different from what we've seen already? There has to be some sort of change. We expect the strikes.
Yeah, like this guy, I just talked to him briefly while we were talking about projects and work and blah, blah, blah. But like they implemented a new fucking onboarding system for like a company like, it was a computer company like IBM or something, right? With thousands and thousands and thousands of employees, and the way they onboarded and stored their personnel files and records and how they did it and blah, blah, blah. And he was talking about setting up like hundreds of fucking training seminars and sending people out to do fucking PowerPoint presentations. And they came up with a little fucking online refresher test that you had to go back through every 3 months. And, just getting somebody trained to do that and then actually having them do that. And as soon as they don't do it right, well, now they've broken the law and Trump can say it's invalid. They didn't even follow the law we passed. They knew it was a law. They still didn't do it.
The next wave of strikes to do something that the last wave didn't, there has to be some degree of change. Now, it did look like in recent days, the U.S. has started going after more infrastructure targets. We've seen bridges and rail lines and roads taken out leading to Bandar Abbas. It's possible we're trying to isolate that area. So anyway, it's going to be interesting to see what the U.S. targets as these strikes intensify. The second piece is going to be the effect of Iranian strikes in the region. We have seen a number of impacts in places like Bahrain, Kuwait, Jordan now as well. What does that do to the resolve of our allies in the region? They are taking the brunt of these Iranian attacks right now. Are they still willing to hold the line? Do they start to give in and maybe pressure the United States to try to bring about some sort of negotiated settlement in the near term? And the last one, of course, the U.S. missile defense in the region. This was a pretty surprising couple days with a number of Iranian missiles and drones apparently making it through U.S. air defense. Is that a one-off? Did they get lucky? Was it new targeting that they were able to take advantage of? Or is this indicative of a change in what we might be able to expect in this conflict for the near future? So 3 items I'll be watching here in the coming days. But that's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.
Saying that he wants to try to I don't think he wants it implemented. I think he wants to set a standard that can't be reached, again, so he can invalidate it all.
That is over $550 more per household. Fertilizer costs skyrocketed in the middle of spring planting, crushing farmers operating on extremely thin margins and costing families more on just about everything they buy at the grocery store. The costs of this war have been astronomical. And what has it been for? What has actually been achieved? We hear a different rationale for this war every few days. It was about preempting imminent threats, which we now know did not exist. It was about regime change, then liberating the Iranian people. It was about destroying Iran's nuclear program and its navy. And at one point, it was about taking out its ballistic missiles until the president decided that actually, and I quote, it's a little bit unfair for them not to have some. Trump has...
So something like a bridge is tied to disproportionate outcomes. So if it was solely used by the military, that'd be pretty easy valid military target. If it was solely used by a civilian population, that would be pretty easily, you could say, okay, that's not a valid military target. The way they look at something like a bridge is they weigh whether it has a disproportionate effect on the military advantage versus how much harm it causes to a civilian population.
Has even suggested the war is about taking Iran's oil to, quote, make a fortune. And now the United States' primary strategic objective seems to be to actually just reopen the Strait of Hormuz, which of course was fully open toll-free before this war began. President Trump has, by any objective measure, failed to achieve his goals. Our country is no safer or better off than before the war. In fact, we are considerably less safe.
You might take out a bridge that causes, that's really close to a military base, that causes this military's response to be lengthened by several hours. But if you're a civilian in the area, there's another bridge down the road that you can take to get to work or to the store or whatever. It doesn't make it impossible. It lengthens your drive by just a few minutes. Maybe the bridge isn't strong enough for military vehicles or whatever. It's civilian only. You can still take that. There's still a way around. But the military now, they can go around too, but now it's going to take them 4 hours to respond instead of 45 minutes to an attack in a certain area or something.
Our stockpiles have been depleted, and it will take years of production to fully replenish them, no matter how much money is thrown at this problem. Our global force posture is much weaker, and as assets have been moved now to the Middle East, and we are now much further away from a long-term solution to halt Iran's nuclear program than we were before Trump whipped up the deal that President Obama negotiated, which secured actual, measurable commitments and progress without ever starting a costly war. In fact, there are new reports that Iran may have moved nuclear assets into a mountain bunker, which raises concerns about whether Iran might restart its program. It used to be a pretty somber and serious thing, a president taking America to war and costing lives and taxpayer dollars. But this president has been downright flippant. The people I represent worry Trump.
It's not like Trump will ever answer for this. But if he did have to answer for these bridges, there better be a clear line about how you could prove it was a valid military target and how it changed, their military's ability to attack us, blah, blah, blah. But Trump just likes to yell shit.
Thinks this is all a game and has sent men and women into harm's way without any sort of plan. And now that he's driven that car into the ditch, he wants taxpayers to bail him out. As the daughter of a World War II veteran and a Purple Heart recipient, the way this White House has blissfully operated with no plan for success is disrespectful to our men and women in uniform. These are patriots. They are highly trained and have sacrificed tremendously to keep us safe. They shouldn't be forced to put a show on for the president's birthday parade or do the job of Border Patrol agents or risk their lives in a disastrous war that the president clearly failed to think through. And as a U.S. Senator, this administration's refusal to explain what it is doing or how this war is protecting Americans, its refusal to seek authorization from Congress, and its expectation that Americans will now just pay for it all without any explanation or transparency is
it is wild.
Insulting to the people back.
They've never asked for any permission to do anything, but now they need money, and they're coming saying, please, can I have some money?
That all of us represent. So here we are 5 months later. The strait is closed. The ceasefire hasn't just
67 billion, I think, is what he's talking about.
Disintegrated. This war is now spiraling out of control again. The president is threatening escalation and war crimes and suggesting this could be another forever war. He has told us over 40 times now that a deal is near and the war will be over soon. But now he is asking for $70 billion more, and for us to just trust him, it'll work out fine. Look, I've been very clear. My Democratic colleagues and I will do absolutely everything to ensure that we do take care of our service members and keep this country safe. Chairman Kaine, I hope you know that every Democrat on this committee deeply respects the sacrifices that you and our service members and their families are making. Everyone who signed up to serve our country deserves to be more than an afterthought in a war that the president decided to launch despite all the blinking red warnings. But my colleagues and I cannot and will not support rubber stamping our request to bankroll this war and whatever other misadventures Trump wants to get us into next. The American people want to see a quick and strategic end to this war, not $70 billion of their tax dollars sent to keep it going. And I want to make a few important...
We'll skip around some on this, obviously. It's fucking 3.5 hours.
The cost of the Iran war. This request is chock full of asks to fund unrelated DOD priorities, which should be considered through our annual appropriations process, not in an emergency supplemental. And that includes almost $1 billion for Southcom, nearly $1 billion to keep deploying the National Guard here in D.C.
We used to say that all the time in the military.
And more than $1 billion.
It isn't a war crime if it's the first time.
For the southern border. Secondly, President Trump is making...
You got to have an example to point to, right? If you're launching fucking giant dildos and killing people out of mortar tubes, well, no one's ever done that before, so they'd have to see it first, then be like, okay, for future reference, these fucking 18-inch dildos that you're killing people with, launching from a mortar tube, war crime.
as the Pentagon has a record-breaking $1 trillion total budget for FY26, including over $75 billion it has in unspent money from Republicans' big ugly bill. Understand you may have mismanaged your budget, Secretary Hegseth, but you have to do your due diligence to fix the cash flow problems you've caused before asking taxpayers for more. Third, the president is now asking for all of us to approve tens of billions of dollars in new funding for the war while his administration still has yet to share actual cost estimates, essential information to justify this request, and a plan for where on earth this conflict goes next. This administration is either hiding the truth from Congress and the American people, or if you take at face value what they've said in the few briefings that we've had, they have no idea what is going on and no plan to right the ship, neither of which is acceptable. Now, Trump is also asking Congress for over $10 billion to help struggling American farmers who have been crushed first by the tariffs and then by this war, which has shot fertilizer and diesel costs through the roof. I'm digging into that request, but let me be clear. As we're looking at what farmers might need to weather Trump's storm, we must also help families put food on the table. And to do that, we should delay and ultimately reverse Republicans' deep cuts to SNAP, which have already kicked at least 1 million kids off of food assistance. Finally, Trump has also requested, and I'd read this one twice to believe, $1.3 billion in new funding for the State Department for Global Health and Humanitarian Needs. At the very same time, his administration is withholding more than twice that amount in funding that has already been signed into law and is available for the same purpose. He's also asking for authorities to make U.S. taxpayer dollars subsidize the Venezuelan oil industry and to finance the establishment of private investment funds like the one he just handed over to one of his ballroom donors. Unfortunately, Secretary Rubio is not here with us today to explain those requests, to talk about how this war forced one of the largest evacuations of our diplomatic posts ever, or to explain whether, as a national security advisor, he still thinks this war is, quote, the right decision, and whether he still quote, believes in it strongly. So this is really a request to make taxpayers pay for the president's reckless decisions from the Iran war to his trade wars to his global health cuts, all while doing nothing to help our families back home who are suffering because of those decisions. And that is what we should be focused on, helping people. Because as Senator Padilla and others on both sides of the aisle will tell us shortly, there are urgent domestic needs that we should be addressing instead of sending more money for Trump to drop bombs overseas. Priorities like disaster relief for our communities that have been ravaged by the unthinkable, or taking action to lower families' costs. You know what's a crisis right now? The fact that there are families I hear from back home who are working full-time and still being forced to decide whether to skip meals so they finally can buy their kids a pair of shoes. You know what's a crisis? The fact that hospitals are shutting down and kids are going hungry because of Republicans' cuts. Instead of bankrolling the president's war or sending ICE $70 billion, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle could work with us to quadruple our investments to cure cancer or help families afford childcare or help them afford to cool their homes. Those are policy choices. And Republican leadership has chosen to focus on funding war and ICE endlessly without a single cent for our American families. So let me close with this. This president says we can't afford health care. We can't afford childcare. We can't afford housing. But somehow we can always afford another war. No price tag on that. Families in Washington State are skipping doctor's visits so they can afford groceries. Trump wants Congress to cut him a blank check for a war that no one supports. The American people entrust us to spend their taxpayer dollars strategically and thoughtfully. This is a huge responsibility, so let me be clear. I'm ready to work with my colleagues in a bipartisan way, as always, to address the needs of our nation and the American people. But I hope we can have real conversations about why there seems to always be money for Trump's wars, but never money for the families back home who are desperate for a little relief. So I look forward to today's discussion. Thank you.
I will now introduce our first panel of witnesses. Today, we're going to be hearing first from our colleagues, Senator Mike Rounds of South Dakota, Senator Ted Budd of North Carolina, and Senator Alex Padilla of California. I welcome all of you, and Senator Rounds, we'll begin with you first.
Chair Collins, Vice Chair Murray, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to highlight why food security and national security go hand in hand. I'd also like to thank the Trump administration for recognizing that input pressures have made it more difficult for American farmers to support their own operations. In South Dakota, farming and ranching is more than a job, it's a way of life.
Almost like the tariffs fucked them. I don't know.
On hard work, stewardship, and the hope of leaving the land better for the next generation. Feeding and fueling the world has never been easy. Producers continue showing up year after year, despite drought, floods, disease, pests, volatile markets, and other challenges beyond their control. This supplemental funding request comes at a critical time. Farmers and ranchers are facing production costs that exceed market returns. Higher fertilizer, diesel fuel, seed, equipment.
Diesel fuel, fertilizer. Where do those come from? Where's diesel fuel and fertilizer come through? Oh, the Strait of Hormuz. Wow.
Crop protection costs, coupled with retaliatory trade practices and continued market uncertainty, have put enormous financial pressure on producers. Specifically, the projected loss per acre across the country in 2026 for corn is $131. For cotton, $342.
I know this stuff right here is kind of dry, but you want to see something absolutely fucking wild that I would never do? And if I did it, I would never fucking admit it. And if I never fucking admitted it, it damn sure wouldn't be on the goddamn internet for the whole world to see.
One time we're in the shower, I said, hey, I looked at my boys. Whose pee-pee is that? Mine.
So at one point he's in the shower with him and his two young boys. They're all naked in the shower, and they're at a point where they can have a conversation with him. When he says, whose pee-pee is that? They know what he's talking about, and they know to answer him. That's where we started this conversation.
One time we're in the shower, I said, hey, I looked at my boys. Whose pee-pee is that? Mine. Whose is that? Mine. Whose is this? Yours, Daddy. I said, who gets to play with that?
Also, his dick is out, and he's like, whose dick is this? They're like, yours, Daddy.
Whose is this? Yours, Daddy. I said, who gets to play with that? Who? Only you. And yours is you. And mine's your mommy.
Hold up a damn minute.
Whose dick is that? It's yours. Whose dick is that? It's yours. What about this dick? That's daddy's dick. And who gets to play with your dick? Just you. Who gets to play with your dick? Just you. And who gets to play with daddy's dick? Your mom. What?
Bro, you're in the shower with your kids? 2 of them at the same time? Whose pee-pee is that? I'm literally speechless. I try to stop making content about this guy, and then people send me like this.
I understand having this conversation with children. Like, no one touches that. And Mariah's real big on giving them the proper name for their genitalia. And so someone can't, like, sweet talk them into, oh, this is your no-no place and blah, blah, blah. So they know how to describe it. If they're ever assaulted or someone asks them about it or blah, 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 they can be like, hey, this weird creep wanted to see my penis. You know what I mean? We're not doing it in the fucking community shower. What the fuck?
This. I don't know how old they are in this story. Too young to be showering by themselves, I'm guessing, which would then mean that they're too young to be learning about their mommy playing with your thing. I would think, what the actual this dude is insane.
My wife remembers that conversation. She's in the shower. She ran out. She got so uncomfortable quick.
She was in the shower too?
She was in the shower.
She's in the shower. She ran out. She got so uncomfortable quick.
She was in the shower too? What's going on? The whole family was just in the shower together? Am I misunderstanding? I swear I'm not like editing this in a certain way. What is going on?
Old enough to have this conversation, understand, and apparently old enough to say, mommy plays with my dick. Your mother plays with my dick. But also young enough to be showering with? What the fuck, dude?
What's going on? The whole family was just in the shower together? Am I misunderstanding? I swear I'm not like editing this in a certain way. What is going on in the Bet David household? You really never know what people are doing inside their own home, you know?
One time we're in the shower. I said, hey, I looked at my boys.
Wild, bro. Wild. And he's told that story multiple times. I found another example when I was looking for the full clip in context. It just happened recently. But there's another clip from over a year ago where he tells the same story, the exact same story. He doesn't have the mommy plays with my dick part, but he tells the rest of it.
For wheat, $114, and for soybeans, $80. While we work to strengthen America's ability to produce more of what we need here at home and reduce reliance on foreign supply chains, Congress should provide stability so producers can remain in business and continue producing the best food and fuel in the world. Today's threats extend well beyond weather and markets. Foreign adversaries, cyber threats, industry consolidation, arbitrary standards, and unfair trade practices impact farmers' ability to produce food, fiber, and fuel. Food security, energy security, and national security are connected. We also have an opportunity to strengthen both agriculture and energy security by permanently authorizing voluntary access to nationwide year-round sales of E15. Giving consumers the option to choose a higher ethanol blend would increase domestic fuel production, expand markets for corn growers, reduce reliance on foreign energy sources, and provide families with lower cost options at the pump. Given the significant defense investments included in this supplemental, I also want to emphasize the importance of fully funding our national defense. We are living in one of the most complex and lethal threat environments since the Second World War, and the brave men and women who volunteer to defend this country deserve the leadership, training, and equipment, along with resources necessary to maintain America's military advantage. Protecting America's food supply, energy supply, and national defense are not separate priorities. They reinforce one another. This supplemental provides needed assistance to help farm and ranch families endure.
One time we're in the shower. I said, hey, I looked at my boys. Whose pee-pee is that? Mine. Whose is that? Mine. Whose is this? Yours, daddy. I said, who gets to play with that? Who? Only you. And yours is you. And mine's your mommy.
And that's not even the worst part, because he goes on to say, wife.
For today's economic challenges, while Congress and continue advancing long-term policies that strengthen American agriculture. I urge my colleagues to support this supplemental request to provide stability to our ag producers at this time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Rounds. Senator Budd.
Chair Collins, Vice Chair Murray, members of the committee, thanks for the opportunity to testify this afternoon to provide a voice for the people in western North Carolina. More than 21 months ago, Hurricane Helene unleashed an unprecedented amount of rainfall on the Blue Ridge Mountains, causing severe flooding and devastating landslides. The storm left behind tens of billions in damage. In December 2024, Congress responded by approving a disaster supplemental that provided billions of dollars to western North Carolina recovery. Additionally, North Carolina's state government stepped up by committing roughly $2.4 billion.
Trump didn't even know that Tennessee flooded.
In state appropriations and redirecting more than $2 billion from state agencies for reconstruction.
He was just talking about how our governor was just being a good friend to show up because North Carolina flooded. Had no idea that fucking my whole area of Tennessee was goddamn underwater and fucked. Still fucked.
But the Blue Ridge Mountains' challenging terrain has made it uniquely difficult for federal programs to operate, resulting in delays and inefficiencies. And there's still...
I don't think weird penis touching talks in the shower is a cultural thing.
Work to be done. Too many projects in Western North Carolina have stalled due to insufficient funding because of financial shortfalls from expensive debris removal and rebuilding efforts. I greatly appreciate that President Trump and Secretary Mullen have empowered FEMA to more rapidly reimburse the state and local governments for public assistance projects. However, FEMA is only one part of the equation. The Environmental Protection Agency...
let's get the back and forths.
Most address the long-term
help. We help.
Alex Padilla.
On time, seated. Let me introduce them. We are joined today by the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane. These administration officials represent the largest components of the administration's request, and we welcome them to the committee today. Secretary Hegseth, we will begin with your testimony. Please proceed.
Well, Chair Collins, Vice Chair Murray, members of the Senate Committee on
Here we go.
The opportunity to testify on President Trump's supplemental funding request for the Department of War. As you know, we live in a dangerous world that requires bold and swift action.
I want to make my shower really nice. Like, I'm going to extend, eventually, like this is like down the road, I'm going to extend it, make it a little bit wider, put 2 shower heads in it with 2 mixing valves, and then I want those wall jets that you can like turn on, where there's like 2, 4, 6 maybe wall jets on front and back that kind of hit you and massage you or whatever. I think that would be cool eventually.
Hence, this supplemental request for fiscal year 2026. This request is an urgent, necessary injection.
It's not a tub at all. It's only like this. It's like shower pan, so just a couple inches. But I want to bring it maybe right now. If me and Mariah wanted to both be in the shower, we could, but it would probably be tight. If I just gave it another like 2 foot, not wider, just like depth, like going into the shower, I think it'd be a lot better. Make a nice shower.
Just to address the immediate needs of our department. The supplemental funding request is not a substitute.
He has protesters pop up the whole time.
The witness will suspend until order is restored in the committee room. I know that individuals feel very passionately, but we must have order in the hearing room so that we can proceed. We're now going to move forward with our hearing, and Secretary Hegseth, please proceed.
Thank you. The supplemental funding request is not a substitute for the President's full $1.5 trillion base budget request. $1.5 trillion.
Mr. Secretary, please suspend until order is restored in the hearing room. We will begin the timing clock since you've been interrupted twice. Please proceed.
$1.5 trillion is what the President seeks and what we need to defend the country. The members of this committee understand better than most that long-term strategic dominance cannot be funded through one-off supplements.
We will have order in the hearing room.
No, you won't. It's going to keep happening.
Mr. Secretary, please proceed.
Collectively, the budget proposals submitted under President Trump follow a simple logic.
I would ask that the Capitol Police, whose professionalism I admire, remove those who are seeking to disrupt the hearing. Please proceed.
President Trump's following a simple logic. The military requires a generational investment to deliver on peace through strength. We know the best way to create peace is to prepare for war, to deter it. And that's exactly what the Department of War is doing, building a force so capable that it would be absurd for anyone to challenge.
Prepare for war or just hop into one and be like, oh, fuck, here we are now. Also, we need more money.
And gross negligence, the ignored threats left over from the previous administration, President Trump inherited a set of global and domestic crises, deferred maintenance almost across the board. Instead of steering the ship through gathering storms, former leaders let our military languish through social experiments and globalist appeasement. Sheer weakness. Under President Trump, we have built a different type of department. The Pentagon is no longer run by bureaucrats. Instead, it's led by combat-tested veterans and world-class business leaders who are running the department like a business, and tech titans who are bringing lethal innovation to the battlefield. We're also at a different moment, and we cannot afford inaction. If we don't make critical investments right now in tech, in compute, in AI, in autonomy, in space, our adversaries who are already making these types of investments could outpace us. Without these funds, we face critical shortfalls that threaten our ability to also simply pay our service members, rapidly replenish equipment and munitions, and sustain vital operations without disruption. This supplemental request serves...
We've already lost the war for the fucking North with global warming happening and icebreakers and shit, and Trump wants to fucking take Greenland and all that shit. We've kind of already lost that. Russia's fucking dominating the shit out of it.
2 purposes. Sustain our military readiness to meet this year's new demands and accelerate critical capabilities to replace and augment those we have used in contingencies. But make no mistake, this is not a one-for-one replacement. We are upgrading and we are modernizing across the force. On the readiness front, we requested $21 billion. This will fund military pay, replace much of the equipment utilized during recent operations, sustain forward deployed forces, and grow personnel and strength while stabilizing mission-critical fuel shortfalls and supporting the National Guard. On the capability side, we requested $46 billion. These funds will expand production lines and accelerate delivery of high-demand munitions. We're talking about solid rocket motors, JDAMs, hypersonic hypersonics, and counter-drone capabilities. Additionally, we will use this investment to secure digital and space dominance, including resilient satellite networks. Department leadership recognizes that appropriating those funds is just the first step. Once funds are appropriated, or portioned, to the department, we need to promptly execute on them, and that's why we're requesting targeted legislative authorities, like transfer authority, to prioritize our greatest needs and opportunities, multi-year procurement for weapon systems, revolutionizing the speed and scale of munitions procurement, and New START authorities. Rest assured that every dollar appropriated to the Department of War will be focused on building the lethality of our joint force and reinforcing peace through strength. As I have said before, not fully funding this department, the Department of War, and we know what that means, that means $1.5 trillion, given the world that we live in and the disaster of what the Biden administration budgets gave us. Not funding this department at $1.5 trillion, I believe, is the greatest threat that our nation faces. Either we invest in our warriors at this moment of step change on the battlefield and growing threats, or this is all just talk. I look forward to working with this committee to secure those funds so that our warfighters can continue to do their work every day to keep our great republic safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. General Kane.
Chair Collins, Vice Chair Murray, distinguished members of this committee, I'm honored today to appear before you with Secretary Hegseth and Secretary Rollins to testify on the Department of War's fiscal 2026 supplemental funding request. And I'll note I fondly remember my time at USDA earlier in my career where I had the chance to serve there. I'm also joined today by my senior enlisted advisor, SEAC Dave Isom. As always, I'm deeply grateful for this committee's continued partnership and support for our common defense. I'd like to begin by expressing my deep condolences and that of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the SEAC for the fallen from this past weekend and their families. Today, we remember First Lieutenant Tyler Feehan, Sergeant Michael Swinton, and Private Isabel Gonzalez, and note that the names of our last fallen will be released when.
Of course, fallen.
I'm humbled daily by the profound commitment of the incredible
By the way, if you guys want to support the show, do it at buymeacoffee.com/coldbeer or just quick links. justquicktools.com/mylink/coldbeerconfessional. I always fuck that one up. Thank you guys for joining us. It's bill time.
1.8 million Americans just.
I'm going to skip this opening statement to the back and forth.
In addition, never forget our fallen and their families who continue to show us what courage.
Let me begin with the bottom line up front.
We shouldn't have fallen in or on.
The United States Department of Agriculture is joining today the United States Department of War in a fight for America and for American flourishing. After all, defending America's ability to feed and fuel and clothe herself is defending America full stop. This can be easily forgotten. For centuries, we built farms and ranches and transportation.
We removed your video. See why. The video may contain something that could encourage violent, lead to risk of physical harm, direct. What? You misunderstood the video. They're saying that I made a call to violence on Facebook.
America, but the world too. For a long time, that prosperity made America strong and made America safe. But across the past 100 years, and especially across the last administration, we took that source of strength in war and peace, our farms and our ranches and the communities that surrounded them, and we hollowed them out. We made them weak, and we put them on the precipice of decline and extinction. We sent our food production overseas. In fact, 2023 was for the first time a significant net importer of our food for America, and in so doing, we replaced American production with massive amounts of imports. We allowed and even encouraged the consolidation of agriculture, seed production, processing, fertilizer, and beyond into massive industries at scale. Today, nearly 85% of our meat packing capacity is controlled by just 4 companies, including 2 that are foreign owned. Additionally, our largest pork company in America is owned by a China company, or China. 4 fertilizer companies now represent 78% of the production versus just a couple of decades ago that was in the dozens. And 2 seed companies now produce more than 50% of the seed for America. These are national security implications. When President Trump returned to office, America's farm economy faced one of the most difficult economic environments in decades. Between 2020 and 2025, the cost of seed rose 19%, crop protection rose 30%, fertilizer rose over 50%, fuel and oils rose nearly 33%, electricity 36%, and repair and maintenance 27%. As these costs climbed, commodity prices plummeted. Farm income fell by more than $90 billion from 2023 to 2024, representing one of the largest single-year declines in history. At the same time, producers saw not one new trade deal across the world, resulting in an unprecedented $50 billion agricultural trade deficit. American farmers deserve better, and our national security now demands it. As long as we are beholden to foreign and even hostile countries for our food and our fuel, our freedom is in jeopardy. Since my first day at USDA, we've been committed to addressing this crisis head-on, in addition to implementing the historic working families tax cuts, thanks to so many in this room who worked so hard, moving $40 billion in disaster and economic assistance to producers across the country, securing 19 new trade deals, and decreasing that $50 billion agricultural trade deficit in 1 year by 42%. This year, our corn exports are expected to be at a record-breaking 35%.
Insane.
11% dairy up.
I think it was about where I was saying they're claiming Ben said, "Give us our Legos, we're going to come shoot you with a gun." Blah, that just didn't happen. But I wasn't making a call to violence. It's fucking insane.
Is so important for now. So and a new system, putting our farmers and ranchers first, and to restore the system that originally made America great.
She has no idea what she's doing, by the way.
They only ask to be free to fight. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony. We will now begin with questions for our witnesses. As you can see, we have a very full attendance of committee members today, so I would ask that all of our colleagues to please keep track of the clock and stay within the allotted 5-minute question time. With that, let me begin. Secretary Hegseth, General Kane. Members on both sides of the aisle have questions about the authorization.
They ought to put Kevin Costner's character from Yellowstone in there.
strategy, objectives, and conduct of operations in the Middle East. Regardless of our differing views, the fact remains that there are must-pay bills and urgent requirements facing the department that affect the ability of our military to deter and defend against potential aggression worldwide. Portions of the supplemental request go toward paying these bills and are necessary to restore readiness, repair, or replace battle damage to aircraft, ships, or bases, and address urgent munitions challenges. I understand and am told that some military services face near-term solvency challenges. What will be the impact on our troops if additional funding is not provided? Are there military exercises, for example, that are at risk of cancellation? What message will we be sending to the world? Secretary Hegseth, either you or...
Your appeal was reviewed, and your piece of content does indeed follow our community standards for violence and incitement. We're sorry for your inconvenience the initial decision may have caused. We know it may have been upsetting, but when your piece of content was removed, your feedback will help make us better and make better decisions about potentially sensitive content in the future. You can go to the page status to see how content violations can affect you. So they put it back up, but the live stream's over now. You little bitches.
Or Senator or General Kane.
Chairman, I very much appreciate that question, and it's because it's connected to the real-world realities of this budget cycle. There is training right now and training in the future that would have to be curtailed if we do not get our budget needs met and met urgently. And yes, some of that has to do with the current budget cycle and how things come together. But we are a department that for 4 years met funding shortfalls under the previous administration. It was not a priority to fund the Department of Defense under Joe Biden. It also took the munitions and a lot of there were 5 supplementals out of this committee that took munitions one for one and sent them to Ukraine and had tried to replace them with the same bureaucratic process that was too slow and didn't replace them in real time. And then there were threats that were ignored around the world. So you're looking at a lot of negligence and a lot of deferred maintenance that this department is having to catch up on. And so that's why I call this a generational investment. It truly is. This is $1.5 trillion budget with this supplemental being part of it is how we catch up and get ahead and ensure in the process we're putting soldiers and sailors and airmen first, Marines first, Guardians, that their pay increases, that the end strength increases that have gone up because recruiting is at historic levels are fully funded. So rather than trying to play catch up and make sure we're not losing training, we should be ahead of that curve, and that's where we think $1.5 trillion can get us.
Thank you. Senator General Kane, I'm going to ask you to respond for the record because in my remaining time, I do want to ask Secretary Rollins a question. Secretary Rollins, as we heard from the previous panel, our country has many outstanding recovery needs from disasters and other weather-related events over the past 2 years. As this chart shows, and this is a chart from your department, many have unmet weather-related...
I'm just mad. I don't even want to restart it.
Many of our producers are struggling amid a combination of market volatility and disaster conditions last year, which included excessive rainfall in the spring, followed by a severe drought. They need relief. Yet,
by the way, Colorado River is just fucking drying up and dying. No one seems to care. It's going to hit Deadwater this fucking year.
Administration supplemental request does not include funding to address these recovery needs. It does have $1.1 billion to help Florida agricultural producers rebound from a severe freeze this past winter, but nothing for prior disasters in other states. Can you explain USDA's thinking behind focusing your request just on the 2026 freeze rather than on the 2025 disaster declarations that you made?
Yes, Senator, thank you for that question. Obviously, the discussions that went on over at OMB and with our teams continue, but what I will say is we are obviously 100% in support of any sort of disaster relief program for our farmers, whether it's hurricane, tornado, drought, freeze, et cetera. So look forward to working with you on that and specifically understanding the larger context here that there's a lot of farmers, a lot of producers who are really hurting, not just in Florida and not just from the freeze. So it's important that we work together to solve for that.
Thank you. Senator Murray.
Thank you, Chair Collins. Secretary Hegseth, your department received $150 billion last year in the Republicans' Big Beautiful Bill. It also received a record $839 billion for fiscal year 2026, more money than you asked for last year. Combined, that is a $1 trillion budget for the year, and as I already mentioned, your department has yet to spend
$1 trillion budget, biggest budget ever, and they're like, we don't have enough money.
Half of the reconciliation funds. And despite that, you are here today asking for tens of billions of dollars more for things that you've already asked for in your FY27 request or that have nothing to do with Iran. This administration has tried to sell this as an emergency request, but it may be better understood as an attempt to skirt the normal appropriations process. Here are just a few of the things requested in this Iran supplemental. $800 million for the National Guard to patrol D.C. even longer, over $1 billion for the Army to patrol the southern border, which is DHS's job, $900 million to support the administration's illegal boat strikes in the Caribbean, over $18 billion for munitions, which you've already requested in your FY27 budget request, and $1.7 billion to pay for your decision to recruit more people than the services need, which was not contemplated by the FY26 funding bill Congress recently passed. Now, you've already submitted a reprogramming request on this that our subcommittee is considering now, which really underscores the point I made in my opening remarks that the problem is not a lack of money, but poor planning. So I'll be blunt. The truth is your request does not make a lot of sense. So let me ask you a simple question. Why exactly are billions of dollars more for the National Guard and this administration's illegal strikes in the Caribbean urgently needed for the Iran war?
Well, Senator, I wouldn't, of course, agree with your characterization, but why this kind of spending is needed is because of the gross negligence and neglect of the Biden administration inside our department. Ran it like a bureaucracy, abandoned our strength posture around the world, so we're having to reestablish deterrence. You mentioned the end strength numbers, and I will acknowledge that we are ahead of schedule on end strength in recruiting. 8,000 in the Navy, 6,000 in the Army, 4,000 in the Air Force, because under President Trump, there's been record and historic over 30-year recruiting records inside our department since he won the election because the American...
Everything's record and historic.
Want to sign up for what Joe Biden...
Always.
Well, and they want to sign up for what President Trump is doing in his leadership. And so those are good problems to have that we need to fund and a reflection of momentum, and this budget will allow us to continue the kind of momentum that's ahead.
My point is that a lot of this request does not feel like an emergency. Let me move on. Secretary Hegseth, like most Americans, I've had a lot of trouble following this administration's contradictory statements about the war. On April 8th, you said, and I quote, their missile program is functionally destroyed, launchers, production facilities, and existing stockpiles depleted and decimated and almost completely ineffective. Mr. Secretary, Iran has been firing at U.S. military bases in the region and its ships for the last week. How is it possible?
Militarily ineffective. They are militarily ineffective now. They can't do anything to us. Their military cannot cause an effect to us. Now we're at war with them, and they're hitting us hard. We need more money.
If their capabilities were, quote, functionally destroyed 3 months earlier, is she claimed for them to be doing this now?
Well, Senator, Iran is at the weakest point militarily it has ever been in the past.
Yeah, the NOAA cuts piss me off. Like, they're not partisan. Like, everybody needs to know the fucking weather, you piece of shit.
Decade, certainly maybe in 47 years, as they've gathered effectively a terror army. And that terror army was built to try to create conventional capabilities to defend against a pursuit of nuclear weapons, which meant thousands of ballistic missiles, many of which we have destroyed, others of which they have put inside facilities and hidden in underground facilities. That's what terror machines would do. So I acknowledge they still have capabilities, no doubt. But the amount of damage that we've done to them over the course of these series of operations has put them in the worst place they've ever
Okay,
been.
well, let me move on. On May 5th, you claimed that Iran doesn't control the strait, and you said that there was a, quote, powerful red, white, and blue dome over the strait. If that was true, how did Iran shrink ship traffic in the strait to a trickle again last week?
We pushed almost, I believe, between 400 and 500 million barrels of oil under the nose of Iran over the course of Project Freedom, which went underground, which I acknowledged after we did so covertly because it was more effective to do so quietly than to do so publicly. So we've been in control of moving traffic through there for quite some time. Well, they retained the ability to recklessly shoot at commercial shipping. That's what happened. We had a ceasefire, and then they shot at commercial shipping.
Well, you also said at that same press conference, I'm going to quote you, you urged Iran to, quote, let innocent ships pass freely. These international waters belong to all nations.
One super tanker can carry 3 million barrels.
Underground, which I
last week.
We pushed almost, I believe, between 400 and 500 million barrels of oil under the nose of Iran over the course of Project Freedom, which went underground, which I acknowledged after we did so covertly because it was more effective to do so quietly than to do so publicly. So we've been in control of moving traffic through there for quite some time. Well, they retained the ability to recklessly shoot at commercial shipping. That's what happened. We had a ceasefire, and then they shot at commercial shipping.
Well, you also said at that same press conference, I'm going to quote you, you urged Iran to, quote, let innocent ships pass freely. These international waters belong to all nations, not to Iran to tax, toll, or control. Last week, President Trump said that the U.S. would charge a 20% toll to each ship to pass through the state. So based on your opposition to tolls, did you talk to the president out of that idea, or did someone else?
Iran's not charging tolls, and they're shooting at ships right now.
But Trump said that he wanted to charge a 20% toll.
We have a blockade right now of all Iranian ships and Iranian ports, and it's effective.
My time is up.
Trump says that he wants to charge a toll. We have a blockade. We're not charging a toll currently. But he said he wants to start charging a toll, that he should charge a toll to get money for the United States from a strait that we do not fucking control. Well, they're not.
Senator.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you all for being here. Challenging times. I think we all recognize that. Secretary Hegseth, I want to ask just specific to Iran authorization. The administration has made the case that the action in Iran falls under the president's Article 2 authorities, and we can have disagreement. Reasonable people can disagree about the boundaries of the presidential war powers and have for a long period of time. But I look at the war powers resolution, and it's not ambiguous. It requires the president to terminate hostilities within 60 days, absent congressional authorization. So hostilities began February 28th. May 1st, Congress was informed that hostilities had ended, but yet despite the fact that hostilities had ended, we were still seeing sailors being fired upon still activity. Then in June, MOU is signed to preserve the ceasefire while negotiations continue. That MOU has now collapsed, and we're seeing the resumed attacks in the Straits of Hormuz. On July 10, the administration sends Congress a new war powers notification, effectively restarting the 60-day clock again. So I'm concerned about this sequence because you have a situation where the claim essentially allows the president to extinguish the war powers clock just at the moment that it becomes legally inconvenient through declaration of
Right. He would have to go to Congress, but no, not a war anymore. Sorry.
ceasefire. Then it's reset, avoiding the congressional authorization that the Constitution requires in the war powers.
That's the only reason we had this temporary ceasefire is because he didn't have to go and report to Congress about it.
Intends. So we had an opportunity in previous appropriations hearing for me to ask if you felt the administration had all the authority that it needed. You indicated at that time that no additional authority was not needed. Is the administration still taking that position about needing no authorization from Congress at this time?
Senator, I know there's a long-standing legal debate on this particular topic, but we certainly as a department share the position of the White House that we have all the authorities necessary at this moment.
So let me just kind of do a follow-on. In the Clinton administration, this is 1999, there was an operation that was launched, Operation Allied Force, NATO airstrikes against Yugoslavia. There was not a prior congressional authorization that was sought. President Clinton notified Congress under the War Powers Resolution, and then subsequent to that, sent Congress an emergency supplemental funding request. It was about $6 billion to cover the cost of Kosovo operations. Congress then passed a supplemental package that covered the president's request plus additional military funding. But Congress never passed a standalone authorization for use of military force in Kosovo. When the War Powers clock was set to run out then in May of 1999, the Clinton Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel issued an opinion holding that the supplemental appropriation itself, passed without any authorizing language, satisfied the War Powers Resolution requirement. So is the department looking to that or intending to rely on that same reasoning that funding alone can substitute for explicit congressional authorization?
Senator, I would have to defer to our legal department. We'll get back to you with our views on that. But as of right now, we think standalone Article 2 authorities exist for us to conduct this operation on behalf of the defense of the American people, that the president has those authorities, and seeking this funding is important in pursuit of that and our $1.5 trillion budget. But I wouldn't connect the two without consulting with our legal folks first.
In my remaining time, let me turn to you, Secretary Rollins. I appreciate that you have acknowledged that fishermen are farmers of the sea. I don't know whether you are aware whether any fishermen will be eligible for any of the supplemental funding. They too have faced many of the same challenges that our farmers have with high fuel costs, the impact from tariffs, disasters that we have seen. In the 15 seconds remaining, any help for our fishermen?
Well, I remember having a conversation with you when we were going through the process, and my commitment to you and to Senator Collins and some of our others across the aisle was that it's time for USDA to recognize our fishermen as part of our farmers of the sea. That's never happened before. We now have an office at USDA focused on fishermen, and so I think as you all move forward with the supplemental conversation, obviously up to you all what that looks like, but very supportive of treating our fishermen similarly to the rest of our farmers. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Durbin.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Mr. Secretary, I'd like to ask you to help me reconcile some numbers. It's my understanding that this whole supplemental funding request is $87.6 billion, and most of the funding, $67 billion, is for the Department of Defense. Yet we were told the Department of Defense still has $75 billion in unobligated funding from last year's reconciliation package. Is that true?
Roughly correct numbers, yes.
So you left some change on the dresser before you prepared to come for this hearing. What's going to happen to that $75 billion?
Well, that 75 is, there's plans and designs on that part of the rebuild of our military, which had to be undertaken. And so the One Big Beautiful Bill gave us specific avenues. I'd have to get you the exact numbers of what.
By the way, their whole thing is like Biden didn't fund the military, so we were in a hole and we didn't know it until now. So now we got to catch back up.
That is left.
Does it have to do with the war in Iran?
No, this is rebuilding our military from what was not funded in the past under the Biden administration. So
there it is.
This is from 2026, One Big Beautiful Bill.
I knew it was coming.
Move the president's priorities like Golden Dome for America, move away from all the woke priorities of what the Biden administration was pursuing, give us a chance to start cutting these deals on munitions, all the things.
They were funding woke. We're funding warriors.
The president wanted us to focus on shipbuilding, hypersonics. I mean, the Biden administration ignored hypersonics. They just decided to pretend like that technology didn't exist and we should invest in it. There are things. I don't know what Lloyd Austin did for 4 years. I really don't. The amount of neglect, the amount of thinking and bureaucracy, it was staggering when we took over.
He didn't start a war with Iran, lose control of the strait that's been open for fucking thousands of years, and then come begging for more money. You didn't do that.
Let me interrupt your speech for a minute, Mr. Secretary. It's my turn to ask questions. I've been listening patiently while you made your presentation. You estimated at one point that the cost of the war in Iran was $29 billion, but then added a caveat that there was a replacement of munitions, for example. Do you have a new estimate about what the war has cost us so far in this, the 5th month of the first year of this war in Iran?
Senator, the estimate we have as of today is $37.5 billion.
And is the current activity, which we've been told about the exchange of fire back and forth in Iran, an indication that number is going to go up in the months ahead?
Some of that number captures additional O&M, mill pay, and other that would be anticipated through the fiscal year. So some of that anticipates what costs would be going out in the future as well.
So the new number you've given me is what?
$37.5 billion.
And that represents the cost of the war through what period of time?
Through now for certain aspects of it, but also mill pay, O&M, other anticipated costs through September 30th, Senator.
General Kane, let me ask you a question. I joined a group of senators, some are here, Senator Rounds, Senator Coons, Senator Shaheen, and met with President Zelensky in Turkey during the NATO summit. He was very explicit in terms of what he needed to win. He feels the momentum in Ukraine is moving to his side, and that he is putting a foot forward instead of back. Is that your feeling?
Sir, I think the pressure that Ukraine is putting on Russia is substantive at this point.
Do you acknowledge his request that we help them with air defenses as a high priority?
So I know he's made the request. Whether or not that moves forward is always a debate at our civilian leadership, and I'm aware of that request.
Are you aware of the fact that we appropriated and the president signed into law $400 billion of supplemental funding for Ukraine, including money for air defenses?
I am, sir.
Are you also aware the administration has informed us that that money will not be available in many aspects until the next president is in office?
Sir, I'm not aware of that. My understanding was that capital had been allocated, but I'll have to defer to my civilian leadership.
I'm sorry to tell you the pay plan tells us to be prepared to spend that money in fiscal year 29. The new president, whoever it may be, will make that decision. If you're talking about air defenses and the momentum on the side of Zelensky, what impact will it have if we cannot fund this for 3 years?
So I want to highlight that the incredible work that the Ukraine industrial base is doing is they scale their own capabilities. It ranges from their surface-to-air capabilities to their air-to-air capabilities. I'll note that recently we had the first air-to-air kill where a Ukrainian F-16 shot down a Russian fighter. So I think their ability to scale their layered defense has come along a long way over the past couple years with the help and assistance of many.
General, thank you for your service to the country. I'm sorry for our losses. I believe 17 servicemen have given their lives in Iran so far, and hundreds have been injured, and we should acknowledge that fact. And let me also say, we're in a moment in history where we can win the war in Ukraine. That victory would be critically important for those people who have fought for more than 4 years against the odds and proven they can put Putin back on his heels. But instead of finding the money that they need now for air defenses, we're putting more money into this exchange with Iran, a war of choice, which we never should have entered. Thank you, General.
Senator Moran.
Chairman Collins, thank you very much. Let me first begin with just a statement to you, Secretary Rollins. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your attention to disaster assistance. Hugely significant and important in many states across the country. And it is as challenging circumstances as I've seen farmers in my time and representing them in the United States Congress. And I appreciate my colleague, Senator Rounds, for making that case today. I appreciate the efforts by Senator Bozeman, the chairman of the Ag Committee, and Senator Rounds and his Vice Chairman Shaheen for their efforts here on this committee for that effort. Secretary Hegseth, let me ask you about your recent visit to the 101st Airborne Division. You saw the MV-75 Cheyenne. You saw it firsthand and heard from soldiers, as I understand it, about the next generation capabilities, how they will transform the way we fight. The Cheyenne has broken through, and it appears to me, in the acquisition bureaucracy to deliver a capability for our warfighting much faster than it otherwise would have happened. As you look across acquisition, I mean, we're here talking about appropriations, but the ultimate success we'll have in defending our country is putting that money to work as quickly as possible. So as you
the Cheyenne's a tilt rotor. I hope it does better than the fucking Osprey.
Look at acquisition, what would you tell me we learned from the Cheyenne? Is it a model how the department intends to field the next generation of capacity going forward? What does the program need from this committee to meet both the schedule?
It's supposed to replace the Black Hawk, but goddamn, the Black Hawk's a workhorse.
And the necessity of its capabilities.
Senator, I appreciate the question. I think it's part of one of the untold stories of our department is how we've tried to revolutionize the speed and scale of new acquisitions and procurement. Some of it through munitions and ensuring that companies pay for building their own factories and their own assembly lines so that we're saving billions and billions as taxpayers while companies invest. And when you invest in something with your own money, you want to see it succeed ahead of schedule and on time. Also opening the aperture so it's not just the prime contractors that are competing, but new entrants who make high-cost and low-cost capabilities. I think in particular on the Cheyenne and you know, the Black Hawk and the replacement, the gap that some have identified could exist based on the hesitation on speed and replacement exists because of an austerity mindset, again, that goes back to the Biden administration of divest to invest. And so you end up divesting in certain systems like the Black Hawk before the next one is online, creating gaps for actual operators. And what we're funding in this supplemental and across this budget is the ability to do both. Make sure the systems we rely on the battlefield right now are delivered, and that newer entrants that we're going to need for long-range fight to deliver, to be more survivable in contested environments, which you're talking about. When I had a chance to see it, the soldiers were proud to be in it because they felt like it would give them greater advantage in the future. We need to accelerate the timelines of those and deliver them even more quickly. And when you allow new entrants with all the right incentives, those things happen, and it's happening in that
way. Will that take place? I think you may have just said this, but that will take place in this circumstance of the Cheyenne?
I believe in this administration, because of the policies of this administration, it is likely to do so. Just like the B-21, just like the F-47, just like so many other of our exquisite munitions that otherwise would have taken years and years to even get into development.
F-47, a fucking plane they just made up.
We're moving those things left by, in some cases, years, so that we get them in the hands of warfighters who need them right now. And
I'm bleeding.
In this town.
Thank you, sir. Let me turn to you, General Kane. The department is requesting a significant supplemental to address the ongoing operational demands. Our adversaries are watching how we resource this moment.
Of course, he fired generals before he went in.
Coordinating
Why wouldn't he?
activities and intelligence. In your judgment,
how we prepare for war. Fire everybody against it.
Elsewhere. And how does this supplemental ensure our deterrence posture and our commitments to allies remain credible in every theater all at once?
Well, sir, thanks for the question. In my job, it's to look across the globe and look at the range of trade-offs out there. We are the strongest military in the world. Our adversaries still fear America's ability to project power at the time and place of our choosing. There is no doubt that they are aligning, as I've said before. And I think this supplemental and whatever funding structure the Congress working with the executive branch decides to structure and give us the capital, we'll use that capital.
Is the giant paper towel stuck to my nose more or less noticeable than the tiny dot of blood?
Sure that we sustain that, sir.
You're assuring us that this supplemental and further efforts will reduce the risk to our nation and its national securities.
Yes, sir. I view this, and I've spoken to some of you on the phone leading up to this. I view this as future investments to buy down risk, similar to what I said Marshall fought through in those heady days in 1940, where the need to invest capital early to deliver scale is an opportunity that I hope we don't miss, Senator.
General, thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Senator Reid.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Secretary Rollins, I just want to reiterate a point that Senator Padilla made. We have $10 billion in this request for Midwestern farmers who are suffering because of the interruption of fuel and fertilizers because of the President Trump's war, unauthorized war. Yet, many states, blue states particularly, have submitted requests. Rhode Island has one. February, we had
They're intentionally ignoring requests from blue states that need help, not funding those, but helping out reds. This is the most disgusting thing that you could do as fucking president. Like, oh, these two states have very, very, very similar requests, but this one voted for me, so they got it. This one voted against me. They ain't getting shit.
The worst snowstorm in our recent history, and we've been denied by the president. In fact, if you look at the numbers, 20% of blue states seem to get approved and about 80% of red states. I'm making a point, not asking a question. This is unfair. Thank you. Secretary Hegseth, on February 28th, when you initiated this war without authorization from Congress, the Straits of Hormuz was open and providing vital fuel supplies for the whole world. Now they're closed effectively, impacting globally the price of oil and the economies of the whole world. But the Department of Defense has been planning for potential operations against Iran for many, many years, and one of their obvious assumptions was that the Strait of Hormuz could be closed. Were you unaware of that?
Senator, you're correct. Nobody plans more and looks at more contingencies than our department. And so, of course, undertaking a historic effort like this of this scope and scale, of course, the Strait of Hormuz was front and center in every single aspect of that. Hence why one of our key objectives to begin with was to sink the entirety of Iran's Navy, which its conventional Navy was sunk.
And it's still closed. This isn't a brag. Like, they don't even have a single fucking ship, and they're still holding the Strait of Hormuz closed? We decimated their military. They're still fending us off and killing service members?
Now, you can't get rid of every single fast boat and every single machine gun and a fast boat or every single coastal cruise missile. So
well, fast boats, that sounds like a part of their Navy.
Acknowledge that if the state decided to become...
I hate how his hair looks like Raymond. It makes me so hungry.
A terror state shooting at commercial shipping, that would be an ongoing and contested part of the battle, to include their willingness to mine international waters. So one side weaponized the Strait.
You were completely aware that the Strait of Hormuz could be closed, and obviously sinking their ships has not affected their ability to effectively close the Strait.
We had U.S. boats that surrendered to Iranian ships under the Biden administration, so their Navy was effective in executing.
We're talking about the war you started, not a situation in which oil was flowing freely. There was no conflict. We went losing personnel as a result of Iranian actions. So your fallback to the Biden administration is just a very, very obvious excuse for what I think is probably, as you described so often, gross negligence. You did not fully inform the president that you would be in a situation where the Strait of Hormuz could be effectively closed, oil prices could surge, and effectively the Iranians could maintain their ability to strike back as they are right now. They just killed some of our servicemen last weekend.
This battlefield and all the dynamics of it, of which the chairman and I are responsible for ensuring the president understands every branch and sequel of what could happen, and we did. So the fact that those contingencies all were part of the possibility, and we understood that, is all the more reason why President Trump deserves the kind of praise he should get for undertaking this effort, having the courage to ensure that crazy Islamists can't have a nuclear weapon to hold us at issue. And he's been willing to do that regardless of the challenges.
So he should be praised. He should be praised for starting a war without authority, creating a situation in which the world economy is suffering tremendously. We have to ask extra money for our farmers, and we have no outcome, at least no realistic outcome in sight yet. Let me switch to General Kane. General Kane, these airstrikes have not yet deterred and defeated the Iranians. Do you think airstrikes alone will do that?
So I think academically, as you look across the totality of history, air power's got limits, and we always have to be mindful of those. I think where America's area of exclusivity is when we bring the totality of the diplomatic, informational, economic, and pair that with the military, and there's a lot of that work going on.
Well, the military, the next step would be escalation by ground combat. Do you anticipate that escalation?
So I think it'd be unhelpful for me to opine on hypotheticals.
I think they do. I think they think they have to, at least coastal areas. They've got to put boots on the ground.
What I can tell you is we always develop
I think they do.
Amount of options and the associated risks, and then my main job is to always ensure that leaders understand those options and the risks.
Now, if you employ ground troops to seize objectives, which I would assume would be the first stage, are you prepared for an extended guerrilla war, which would likely happen in that area?
Sir, with all due respect, I think it'd be unhelpful for me to opine on hypothetical situations on what
I don't do hypotheticals.
decisions the president may or may in the future.
Have you advised the president that a ground combat would be very expensive in the lives of our soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, and also could probably lead to an extended unconventional war in that area? I don't see the Iranians sort of throwing their hands up saying, welcome to Iran.
Senator, I always advise the president on a range of military options and all of the risks that are contained within that, but I have to keep my military advice to the president private, sir.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Senator Hoven.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Secretary Rollins, I want to thank President Trump. I want to thank you for including farm bridge assistance in this supplemental request. I know I worked very hard to get included. I know you have worked very hard to get included, and I want to thank you and your whole department for your work on it and for this vital support of our farmers and ranchers. What I want to ask you about was actually crop insurance. The number one risk management tool that our farmers have is crop insurance, and the buy-up option is critically important. It covers 67 million acres of farmland in this country. It was decommissioned, and we need to get reinstated. Again, you and I both worked very hard on this. Please update me on where we are in terms of getting that buy-up option for crop insurance reinstated.
We are 100% supportive of that and are moving forward to execute that buy-up option. Thank you for your leadership on that, Senator.
Thank you for your support. Also, Assistant Secretary Fortis for his support. It's very impactful, very important, and will make a big difference for our farmers right now. So thank you for that. Secretary Hegseth, are Russia and China helping Iran? And if so, how?
Senator, as the chairman alluded to, there's definitely adversary alignment, attempts to do so, and there are many ways that we deter that, some of which are, and the depth and extent of it ought to remain classified, and it should, but there are ways in which both of those countries are limiting at different levels, enabling some of the things Iran is doing, yes.
General Kane, would you like to add? Sir, I'd rather not opine on the specifics because that would and I never want
this motherfucker ain't gonna opine on shit, dude.
To know what I know. I just want to know it, and hopefully we'll get a chance to do that.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Happy
that's pedophile fuel right there.
to do that in SCIF, sir. This relates both to the funding, but also again to how we achieve our objectives with Iran. Starting with you, Secretary, can we get to the point, and we're seeing continued, I think, improvement and progress on this, but essentially where we can, and hopefully our allies they need to step in there with us, but where we get to the point where we can
drag our allies into Iran with us,
operate in the Strait of Hormuz, but keep
Trump's told them that he needed them, then he didn't need them, and he wouldn't even accept their help. If they did send help, that they fucked up, he was going to hold it against them. But now we're like, yeah, let's take our allies in there with us.
Iran blockaded. We're continuing to get better at that, but that's how we keep. They'll never do anything that they say they're going to do. They've proven that over and over. We have to keep the pressure on. But if we can do that effectively, we keep the pressure on and achieve our objectives. Tell us where we are in getting that accomplished.
Senator, I think that's a really good point. That's effectively what we did to create the pressure that led to the circumstances of the MOU, which was we're running a route where ships, and we did it covertly in cooperation with Gulf countries and others who were willing to take some of the risk with our protection. And then
the memorandum of understanding where they got everything they wanted and we got nothing. Yeah, I remember that.
The blockade. So effectively, oil's coming in and out, oil prices are coming down, but our blockade is saying the pressure is mounting on Iran. That's something we have done and can continue to do. We moved into an MOU where Iran said we won't shoot at shipping, and then the IRGC turned around and decided to start shooting at commercial shipping again. At which point the president, as he should, cannot tolerate that, and so we respond, as he said 10 times, you shoot at ships.
Well, Israel broke it almost instantly.
Shoot at you overwhelmingly, which we have been doing now for, I believe, it's the 10th consecutive evening. So consequences come with the willingness to shoot at commercial shipping. Our blockade has been reimposed and is effectively impenetrable. We got seized a ship inside the Arabian Gulf as well. So there's a lot of different angles to it, a lot of levers we can pull, and ultimately...
Bro, you've got a blockade against a country that you claim has 0 Navy vessels. I would hope it's successful. I'm going to shut down the airspace over this country that doesn't have any airplanes, not even fucking paper airplanes. Okay, done.
and CENTCOM have been undertaking are taking Iran's ability to see and sense away in the Strait of Hormuz, which has tactical benefits for us.
And that's what this funding is about. This funding is about making sure that we and our allies can operate in the Strait of Hormuz, which helps bring down energy prices for every single American consumer, and that we force Iran to meet our objectives. Isn't that what this package is all about?
This is a peace through strength package. Right. That's what $1.5 trillion has always been about, a generational investment, as the chairman alluded to, a step change moment. We need to be able to do it at speed, at scale, with autonomy, with AI, with exquisite high cost and low cost to be ahead and stay ahead.
This is about Don Jr. Needs some more contracts for companies he represents.
So that you're not just able to do what we need to do in the Strait of Hormuz, but deter adversaries like Russia and China from getting involved in future contingencies.
And just General Kane, for any follow-up that you would like on that issue. That's right. I wouldn't have anything to add. Okay. Again, thank you, and thank you to all of our men and women in uniform. We appreciate them so much.
Senator Shaheen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Secretary Hegseth, since you...
As long as they agree with us, right? They don't really appreciate the military unless the military is currently agreeing with them. Actually, I just saw a clip. Here it is. While we're on the topic of the MAGA support in the military.
Must be impeached, convicted, and removed. the video. Why are you making me watch you watch it for so long? Just cut to the part that you want to talk about.
Here we have an ideological idiot, 17-year Air Force major.
Hey, I have a question. Do you guys like veterans at all? Do you actually like the human beings who serve?
Well, as long as they agree with us and they be quiet and they support President Trump and they do everything that he says.
In our armed forces. I know you love
those guys.
Pop country songs in your fuck-ass lifted truck, crying like, that's fucking right, people fought and died to protect our freedoms, and if you don't like it, you can fucking get out. You are not going to kneel during the national anthem. You're going to stand your ass up. People fought and died to protect them stars and stripes, and if you don't like it, you can get out. But do you actually like people who served in the armed forces in real life? Do you actually give a shit about them? And the answer is obviously no, because the second one of them disagrees with you about your draft-dodging cult leader, you call them an ideological idiot. Send him off to Leavenworth.
This is what ideology will get you. He will be going to Leavenworth.
You love performatively virtue signaling about how moved you are that people would go and fight and die for your freedoms, but when your draft-dodging cult leader calls those people losers and suckers because they died, you think that's fine. You think that this guy, a 17-year Air Force vet, is an ideological idiot, your exact words, not mine, because he doesn't fuck with this guy who calls him a loser and a sucker for putting his life on the line for you. You think this guy is an ideological idiot who should go to prison because he doesn't like when your draft-dodging cult leader slashes healthcare benefits for veterans. And this is something that Trump just loves to do. He just keeps doing it over and over again throughout the course of his 2 administrations. Every time it's time to lower the budget, his first move is always like, just fucking take it from the soldiers. Who cares? Certainly not the hypocrites in my base. They love taking money from soldiers. You better get on your fucking feet when we're saluting that flag, but don't you think I'm gonna be paying for your physical therapy from that shrapnel in your left butt cheek? That's on you, big dog. That's your fault for not being able to put yourself without joining the army to go kill brown people overseas. I'm trying to make Elon a trillionaire again. You think I got money for your broke ass?
He has decided to put himself in a situation where he's listening to somebody like Jolly Ginger, some fat dude with no teeth that goes around and runs his mouth about being a communist.
Honestly, thank you so much for taking the low road and hurling a completely unprompted ad hominem personal attack about my friend Jolly's physical appearance. That means that I can just spend the rest of the video doing one of my favorite things and reading the absolute fuck out of your Jimmy Neutron with a traumatic brain injury looking ass. Because honestly, we've already covered the substantive refutation of your video. You're a massive hypocrite who cares way more about draft-dodging billionaire pedophiles than you ever will about people in the armed services. You have a very ugly interior
We love the veterans.
psychology. We've settled that. Now let's have some fun and make fun of your very ugly exterior attributes. How are you going to sit here and throw...
It's all just a facade. Like the same people that'll fucking write a tribute song like fucking Bort, right? Raise Up Old Glory will talk shit about me because he doesn't think I'm a real veteran. He thinks people hated me and that no one in my unit wanted to serve with me, and I was hiding and crying and serving with a Girl Scout, what the fuck ever, right? But his entire existence culminates to one event, and it was this stupid-ass goddamn country salute song for the military.
Jabs about my friend Jolly's weight when you very clearly have never met a double Western bacon cheeseburger that you did not easily house in 4 nauseating artery clogging bites. Sitting over here looking like Triple H's fat alcoholic brother quadruple H, and each H stands for heart failure. I'm so damn good at this. This is Triple H today, and you guys really do look like you could be related. And honestly, it says so much about you that he looks this bad and you still manage to somehow look this much worse. You look like you were trying to push out a particularly hearty shit and your face just got stuck that way. Just permanent constipation face for the rest of your life. I like the way that this one single tuft of hair is just holding it down for your former hairline, just hanging on to the front of your forehead for dear life, like this slowly failing carabiner at the beginning of the movie Cliffhanger. And I would maybe feel bad for taking cheap shots at your hairline, but I feel like you cut it this way intentionally so that just on the off chance that you were ever photographed next to Donald Trump, his hair would look somewhat normal in comparison to yours. In fact, yeah, that's exactly what you did. Jesus Christ. Everybody just take it in. All right.
God damn, look at that hair.
Ex-wife in a golden corral. And she is your ex-wife because you are the most divorced looking man I've ever seen in my life. You look like Monster energy drink. You know what I mean? I don't need to elaborate on that. You look like the spirit of this specific can of Monster energy drink. Viking berry, red, white, and blue. And you think that that's a compliment, but it's...
All right, back to this. We got some more.
Testified.
I'm at least going to get John Ossoff before I got to go, guys.
$400 million FY26 appropriation for Ukraine security assistance. This funding was passed back in January, and now there are only 3 months left in this fiscal year. And while I appreciate that we now see what most of the funding is intended for, I just heard from the CEO of one of the manufacturers of the defense articles that are contained in the spend plan that they not only haven't received funding, but they haven't even seen a contract. So when are we going to see a contract for those defense articles that are contained in the spend plan for Iraq? I'm sorry, for Ukraine.
Senator, I'll have to get back to you on the specifics of the timeline of that. I'll talk to our policy shop as well as the UCOM commander to determine where that's at.
Well, you've told this committee that you barely spent half of the $150 billion in reconciliation funding, and if you still have $75 billion available, why are you asking the American people to absorb the cost of a war they don't support instead of asking for transfer authority for unspent reconciliation funding, especially if you can't even get $400 million in Ukraine funding out the door?
As I mentioned earlier, Senator, that money from the One Big Beautiful Bill is otherwise allocated to the rebuilding of our military with priorities of the president, like Golden Dome for America and hypersonics and other munitions investments that we made up front as we tried to adjust the Biden budget into an America First budget. And so reallocating that away from those priorities is robbing Peter to pay Paul. Those are allocated to rebuild.
But my point is, if you can't spend it on a timeline that makes sense, why do you need to come back and ask for more money? Wouldn't it be better to spend money that you already have? And one of the things I noted was, or at least I think that the supplemental doesn't include funding to repair damage to our bases or to our military infrastructure in the region. And I have not heard that we've gotten the full extent of any of those damage estimates. So should we expect another request to address that military construction costs? And at what point do you stop asking Americans to foot the bill for a war they don't support on top of an inflated budget request and billions in reconciliation funds that you still haven't spent?
Well, Senator, I obviously don't agree with your characterization of that.
I appreciate that, but you didn't ask. But I want you to answer my question. I know you don't agree with my characterization. I don't agree with yours either.
Well, one of the reasons I take issue with that characterization is something that Senator Durbin said when he talked about Ukraine and he talked about winning. And I appreciate as much as anybody winning a war. But I sit in front of a committee that wants to talk about winning a war that's been going on for 4 years and talks about strategic defeat of a conflict that's been going on for 4 months to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear bomb. I would hope for some perspective in this town of the historic nature of what President Trump is undertaking. Do you want radical Islamists to have a nuclear bomb?
I don't want to hear your speech because I have limited time.
You want radical Islamists here standing at your front door?
If you can't answer my question, then I will move on.
Were they on their way? Well, now they don't even have any boats. We're probably safe.
To my next question. Secretary Rollins, the timber industry has also been hard hit, as you know, by trade wars, by drought, by wildfires, by other natural disasters that are increasingly common. In New Hampshire, which is the second most heavily forested state in the nation, one of the things that we really need, as you know, because we've had this conversation, is a research program and Forest Service staffing on the ground in a variety of ways, but particularly at Bartlett Experimental Forest. These small investments in research and staffing and sound management help make the forest economies healthier and more competitive. I very much appreciate your having staff visit.
I'll tell you how you prevent forest fires is you just have Trump turn on the spigot. That's all he does. No one even thought about it before. No one's ever thought about it. He went out to California, opened up the hose bib, fires were out.
At Bartlett last week with my staff and with staff from the governor's office. But can you commit to restoring staffing at Bartlett and to keeping the facilities there open now that you've seen the critical nature of that research? Why don't I follow up with you? I have not gotten a report from their visit, so I would like to do that first. But obviously, you and I have been in a continuing conversation about that. The good news, there's no doubt our timber industry is in distress and has been for a long time. The fact that we import 90% or something from other countries of our lumber needs is crazy. We're changing that. But the good news, we had more board feet sold last year than any time in 30 years. This year, we're going to exceed that target again. So we're making the right moves on this. But there's no doubt that research is important to that, as we discussed. And I'll follow up with our team, and then we'll reconnect. Thank you. I appreciate that. As you pointed out, research is critical to ensuring that the timber economy continues to be successful. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Kennedy.
Oh, God.
Thank you all for being here today. General.
I hate this guy and his fucking, God damn. His euphemisms.
Russia and Ukraine, who do we want to win?
Sir, I want Ukraine to win.
Is Russia America's friend?
I'm sorry, sir, I couldn't quite hear your question.
Is Russia America's friend?
I think that depends on your definition of friend. I think it's a complicated relationship. But no, I don't think they're our friends.
Thank you.
Wait. You had to recant that. It depends on what you're talking about, what your definition is, and who you're talking to, and yeah, it's kind of complicated. But no, I don't think we're friends.
If we could cut off Russia's cash flow, which depends substantially on its sale of oil, would that help Ukraine win?
So I think militarily, anytime you can restrict resources and cash flows against an adversary,
I have so much respect for you,
yes, sir.
But I have so little time.
Yes, sir. I'll try to be briefer.
Give me succinct answers.
Yes, sir. It would assist a. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. If we could stop people, entities, and countries from buying Russia's oil, that would help cut off its cash flow, wouldn't it?
Yes, sir.
We have a bill to do that, as I'm sure you're aware. We have the votes today to pass it, overwhelmingly. I also have enormous respect and admiration for our majority leader, Senator Thune. But I hope everybody on this panel will today contact Senator Thune and ask him to bring that bill to the floor. We should vote on it at a minimum of next week. Some of my colleagues, General, want America to just stop in Iran, end the blockade, bring all of our warriors home. What would be the consequences of that, in your estimation?
So I think termination criteria is always a political decision. However, I assess that Iran will continue to be a challenge moving forward. So we have to be thoughtful.
Will they put tolls on the strait?
I don't know, sir. That's a decision that's a hypothetical and will depend on what happens.
It's not hypothetical. We got a blockade to stop them.
We do, sir. That's putting economic pressure on them.
I'm not asking you for. I'm not trying to get you in trouble. I know your advice to the president is private, but this is serious as 4 heart attacks and a stroke. Now, what happens?
You did opine. He's opining way too much.
To the world.
Stop opining, you son of a bitch.
To continue to be a threat, and we will need to prepare military.
Will they toll the strait?
Sir, that's a hypothetical question, and I don't know the answer to that.
Oh, it's not hypothetical.
He doesn't want to opine on it.
It's not going to be hypothetical. You know that, General. And I do too. And I appreciate your discretion, but we're down to it.
We gave them permission to toll the strait in the memorandum of understanding we were trying to sign in the peace deal. We gave them permission.
Hard answers and some straight talk. What'll happen, Pete?
Senator, I would agree with the chairman, but the likely outcome is they would try to impose their will on the waterways in ways that the world would not like. Call it a toll, call it a fee, call it an exchange, call it control. They would do something that they would try to hold it at issue. Yes,
would they try to commence development again of a nuclear warhead?
Part of the reason President Trump had to have the courage to do what he did after Midnight Hammer is that they didn't give up their ambitions even though their nuclear sites had been obliterated. So this is a regime hell-bent on nuclear ambitions, and
Guys,
President
we need
Trump
straight answers. We need straight answers. Do we have the ability
Good luck with these idiots.
whatever is underneath Pickaxe Mountain?
Senator, a lot of our capabilities are classified, but if anybody in the world can reach anything on God's green earth, it's the United States military, the most powerful military in the world. It's all about options and trade-offs.
I'm going to take a little extra time because others got it, Madam Chair. I won't abuse it. Secretary, are shrimpers farmers?
Absolutely, yes. They're farmers of the sea.
Are oyster harvesters farmers?
Yes. In this USDA,
They
yes.
having to compete with other countries who grow oysters and shrimp in a ditch and shoot them full of antibiotics?
100% yes.
And if you eat too much of that foreign shrimp and oysters, you'll grow an extra ear, won't you?
I'm not sure about that, but I know it is not good. And I also know we
Why
import
aren't we
90% of our
inspecting
shrimp.
the shrimp and the oysters from abroad?
Well, it goes much larger than that. Why are we importing so much from abroad, which goes to the president's trade agenda?
I'm in big trouble.
Yes, you are.
Guys, look, we need straight answers now. We're down to it.
Senator Merkley.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair and Secretary Rollins. I appreciate your partnership on addressing several issues in Oregon, and I sent you information about a couple others, and you responded. Appreciate it. We'll follow up on the research service. We'll follow up on the concern about in-kind contributions serving as a match. But I particularly need your help on the fire funding. And I know you've indicated how important that is. Where we stand now is that the Senate seems hamstrung, that they're seeking to have OMB give them a number on that. Various sources say the number is probably about $5 billion. I don't really care if it's 4.5 or 5 or 5.5. The point is that folks here, senators, are asking for a number from OMB in order to go forward. And when we're looking at the fires right now in my home state, it's the epicenter of the highest risk in the country. So can we get your help to get that number and move this process?
Yes, absolutely. It is of paramount importance, especially in the middle of fire season right now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Chairman Kane, I think there was a sense that the President expressed at the start of the war that the U.S. military power was overwhelming and would likely produce unconditional surrender quickly by Iran. And that obviously hasn't happened. Was it your opinion as well? Did you feel like our military force could produce an unconditional surrender in quick order?
Sir, I won't, with due respect, I won't share my private advice to the President. What I will assure you and the American people is I always speak truth to power and offer an accurate assessment of what my assessment is of both our readiness, the plans and activities that might be undertaken, the associated risks, and the secondary and tertiary concerns.
John D. O'Connor.
Thank you. So you feel like the various risks that Iran could possibly close the strait, despite the destruction of their navy, that the possibility of assassinating their political leaders and their military leaders could produce a strengthened hardline and weakened reformers, that Iran would have the ability to sustain its ability to attack sites throughout the Middle East, that the initial requirements of the war could certainly deplete our basically high-end standoff munitions, that this could affect our relations with our allies. All those were factors well considered in this decision to go to war.
Sir, as I said, I won't opine on or share my private advice to the President.
I'm not asking about your Vice President. I'm asking you. Did you understand these issues?
Stop opining.
As the war's unfolded.
Sir, my job is to understand all of the considerations that go into the carefully considered use of military power.
Let me ask you this then.
Yes, sir.
I understand why you don't want to respond, but these are all massive risks that seem to be poorly weighed in the beginning of this misadventure. Currently, there are reports that we have hit the Bonji desalination plant that provides water to about 20 villages or about 10,000 people, and we also damaged the desalination plant at Ketchum Island. Were these deliberate targets by the United States?
Sir, I'm not aware of those as being particular targets, nor am I aware of those reports, and I'll have to go back and get back to you on that.
If you could, I'd appreciate that. You are aware that infrastructure that civilians rely on to survive is not generally considered legitimate military targets?
Sir, as you know, we have a robust process which considers a target that goes through a system that looks at a variety of considerations to include what you're alluding to around both purely civilian or dual-use targets. I have trust and confidence in CENTCOM that they're looking at the range of those things on a daily basis.
It sounds like you are assuring us that we will, the United States, not target, even in retaliatory sense, infrastructure that's generally considered to be primarily for civilian survival.
So, as I mentioned, we have a robust process, and we have the most professional military force.
It's just nice to have you say yes, because this is international law.
Yes,
you understand the international law.
I do, sir. I've got a lot of lawyers that help me understand.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Will you get back to us on that question of whether we targeted the desalination plants? And if so, why? My time's up, but I do want to express encouragement to look at what the negotiators have put forward, or the advisors, as to whether a 10-day break could facilitate returning to dialogue that might find a path forward.
Senator Hyde-Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and I want to thank all three of you for being here today. I am going to direct my first question to Secretary Rollins, and again, I want to commend you publicly for the outstanding job you're doing at USDA. You know, this is my world. As former Ag Commissioner, I hear from a lot of producers in Mississippi, and they are so pleased with your performance, and that is just truly genuine right there. But I'm pleased to see the administration's supplemental request as for ag producers, because before I comment on that, I just want the entire committee and administration to take note of the tremendous timber losses.
We only need $70 billion, guys.
The winter storms and the tornadoes we've had there, it is significant. Is in line with that.
Over Air Force Base, has executed. I want to start with the things I know we agree. Flat, bureaucratic, slow. We're having to revitalize that industry, and one DDG is a reflection of
shipbuilding plan and how it gives industry the confidence to invest?
You just made the case for this generational investment because of the underinvestment, Senator, in shipbuilding in the previous administration. Just static, flat, bureaucratic, slow. We're having to revitalize that industry, and one DDG is a reflection of a backlog in capability. So as we ramp on more capacity, those numbers of DDGs, the workhorse of our Navy, will go up as we grow that force.
The Senator's time has expired. Senator Coons.
Thank you, Chairman Collins, Ranking Member Murray. Thank you, Secretary Hicks, Secretary Rollins, General Kane, for your service. I want to start with the things I know we agree on. We agree that we should honor our fallen, that we should stop and remember them and console and comfort their families, that we should be mindful of the hundreds of Americans who've been wounded and injured in this war in Iran. General Kane, your observation revelations about how our adversaries are aligning more and more closely. Technology is accelerating, and cheap and lethal and easily accessible drones pose greater and greater risks to our troops, our homeland, and our security. And Secretary Hegseth, that we need to protect our troops wherever our president directs them, that we need to protect our partners and allies, and that the dangerous radical Iranian regime should never possess a nuclear weapon. I think we agree on all of these core basic points. Where I think we may disagree is on this supplemental and on the strategic choices made to achieve some of these core goals. We're 143 days into a war with Iran, a war of choice that we started with Israel, but did not include, consult, or incorporate our core allies, our NATO allies, our regional allies, the American people, and Congress. And the reason to consult and include our allies and Congress and the American people is so that when the costs and the length of a war extend beyond what we initially imagined, the American people and their representatives in Congress understand that sacrifice and can continue to support it. I think your first strategic mistake was to not consult the American people in Congress and make a clear case for the reasons behind this war. There have been many, lots offered, and I think our military has executed on the core missions. Attack ballistic missile sites, sink the Blue Water Navy, attack their proxies, constrain their capacity. But I frankly think it was entirely foreseeable that Iran would close the Strait of Hormuz, would use cheap, lethal, widely available Shahed drones that they've led the world in manufacturing to attack our bases, our troops, our partners and allies, and impose real costs. Higher costs in fertilizer, in fuel, higher costs for the world, and tragically, increasingly higher human costs for us and for our troops.
It's almost like we didn't even plan for it.
Good. Mr. Secretary, your question says, without these supplemental funds, we will face critical shortfalls that threaten our ability to pay our service members and sustain global operations without disruption. We've been asked repeatedly, there's $75 billion appropriated but unobligated. Can we really not avoid critical short-term shortfalls? What does that mean about the budget management within the department in terms of unexpected and unbudgeted wars? First, Operation Southern Spear, and then Operation Epic Fury.
I would just note, I was sort of updated, 95% of that One Big Beautiful Bill funding will be allocated by the end of September in accordance with congressional intent. So these are things we said we would spend, and we told you we would spend them on, and we plan to spend them on those things by the end of September. So this is a new request.
Of course, spend it quick while we're asking for new money.
And also, Secretary, but that's news to me, that $75 billion will be out the door, allocated and spent by September. And I was simply questioning how we have ships running out of fuel in the open seas and planes being grounded. And
I didn't say ships were running out of fuel in open seas or planes were grounded. I'm saying there have to be trade-offs.
Accounts
everything our troops need on the battlefield, they're getting in spades and beyond. It's ultimately looking to the future. Can we invest above and beyond that? The types of munitions fast enough as we upgrade and modernize our force. That's what's at issue here in this $1.5 trillion, the supplemental, and any other additional funding that comes.
Two quite different things: a $1.5 trillion base budget request and a now $76 billion supplemental. And I was simply going to point to Department of Homeland Security is sitting on nearly $100 billion in unobligated funds. You haven't requested reimbursement for the millions of, frankly, billions of dollars the department has spent on law enforcement. Second,
we requested reimbursement and are getting a substantial reimbursement from DHS.
That's good news, and that's news to me. And frankly, as we reflect on the service and sacrifice of those who put their lives on the line of this war, one of the things I've raised over and over and over is the ways in which this administration has dragged its feet on partnering with Ukraine in order to deploy the best-in-class sensors, detectors, and counter-drone systems to protect everything from Dover Air Force Base to our bases in the region.
We could have learned so much shit from Ukraine about the drones before we started fucking with Iran, who builds the drones from Russia.
To our partners, I want to see you focus on accelerating the defense of our troops and our nation, focus on accelerating the defense of our troops and this region, and a strategy that has a real chance at succeeding at the goals that we agree on. Because the strategy followed, I think, has no credible likelihood of success.
Senator Britt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate all of you being here today. So since the beginning of the Putin's aggression into Ukraine, this body has not getting those
providing for American men and women as opposed to Ukrainian men and women is a higher priority for the United States Senate. So
now have everything that they
need to be urgent. President Trump may take a different view, but that was the view of the dissent.
Its feet after this body gave them directive as to what to do. So can you shed a little bit more light as to what you were talking about in your opening?
Well, thank you for that question. Sometimes we forget recent history, which under the Biden administration there were 5 supplemental requests for Ukraine, which almost every member of this body voted for to send rapidly in a bipartisan fashion, for something that this committee and the administration deemed to be urgent. President Trump may take a different view, but that was the view of the Biden administration.
And when you say it would be urgent to make sure that our men and women in uniform right now have everything that they need,
I would argue providing for American men and women as opposed to Ukrainian men and women is a higher priority for the United States Senate. So 5 supplementals that went to Ukraine, as good as that cause may be, why is that righteous to do? We're funding troops in harm's way right now, given the threat and what they're undertaking. This is a partisan exercise. It's hypocrisy.
Well, one was a country being invaded, and they had no way to defend themselves, no way to stop it, no way to change anything. We invaded Iran. Iran didn't show up here and just be like, okay, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, you're now Iran.
Real quick, Madam Secretary, question for you. When the Russia-Ukraine war started, we saw obviously costs go up around the world. In particular, in that region, we know that supplying of fertilizer, was tremendous. It would be a driver that
for a sacrifice. Secretary, about 190,000 people in the state of Hawaii.
I got to get through some of this so I can go home at some point tonight.
One of the reasons that they were enthusiastic about Donald Trump and you.
To accomplish a particular objective, you obviously need to know what those objectives are, right?
Yes, sir. It all starts with what is the political objective, and from that we derive military objectives that support whatever that ends.
And as you say, that is a political objective.
Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Secretary, you've talked a lot about winning. You've talked about winning in your testimony today. You've talked about winning throughout the Iran war, and we all like winning. But I think the American people deserve a definition of what it means to win in Iran. and women join this War Department. We want them moving immediately into the training pipeline at the highest possible level with the best possible equipment, and they've seen that thus far, and that's led to historic recruiting momentum. We need to keep that momentum.
Yeah, and I would say that it could have the reverse of patriot they want to be.
You're right. Or return to the valley under the Biden administration, where not only did they not meet the goals, but they had to lower the goals and then didn't meet the lower goals, and then now we don't have the readiness we need as a force.
Thank you very much. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Secretary of Agriculture. I'll get to you another time. Thank you.
Senator Murphy.
Thank you all for being here today. Secretary Hegseth, the American people either didn't want this war from the start or were deeply skeptical of this war because they have seen this country make the same mistake over and over again in wars in the Middle East, and that is to create either unrealistic or open-ended objectives. You said in March that the United States was, quote, on plan to defeat, destroy, and disable all of Iran's meaningful military capabilities at a pace that the world has never seen before. Obviously, as we've discussed here today, that objective has not been achieved, and it's not going to be achieved. Iran is more adept than even at the start of the war at hiding their capabilities or repairing after damage we have done. There's an open report that when it comes to their missile sites along the Strait of Hormuz, 30 of 33 are still operational. I wouldn't believe all the open reports, Senator. But I've also heard you say in this hearing that the objectives now seem...
Yeah, fucking concentrate on taking down Russia, forcing them to end this campaign, and the country will implode on itself. And then strategically and economically, just destroy Iran to the point where they're coming to us to beg for help. You know what I mean? And then say, okay, well, here's the deal we're going to do. Don't leave the fucking agreement in the first place, dumb motherfucker.
To be more limited than they were at the outset of the war, that this is about reopening the strait and this is about dismantling their nuclear capability. And the president, of course, has said himself that he thinks Iran has a right to a missile program. So my question is pretty simple. Is it correct that it is no longer a war objective to destroy all of their military capacities? This is what the president has said. Have our goals been simplified to reopening the strait and to getting into a negotiation over a nuclear program? I don't think you have a realistic plan to do either of those things, but I think it's important for us to know what we're funding. Are the objectives much more limited today than they were when you made that statement in March? So I think the objectives have been consistent and clear from the beginning, and I would contrast it to North Korea, where a conventional buildup was used to hide a nuclear capability that eventually evolved to a point where it couldn't be contested. And what Iran continued to do, even after Midnight Hammer, was try to build that conventional capability to dare anyone to stop them from pursuing nuclear weapons. So getting after their conventional capabilities, missile launchers, defense industrial base, their navy, was all part of it.
By the way, we set them back decades. They were close to a nuclear weapon. We set them back decades. 3 months later, they're close to a nuclear weapon again. Where'd the fucking decades go?
Blackmail us into pursuing a nuclear capability. And laser focused on Iran will never have a nuclear capability. That's the promise the president has made, and that he will keep. I think it is still a war objective, either through military action or through a diplomatic agreement, to destroy and disable all of Iran's meaningful military capacities, including the missile program. As far as all, when we talked about that from the podium at the outset of this, we were talking about their defense industrial base. And if you look at the metrics of their ability to make more, that it's been overwhelmingly destroyed. Not everything, but overwhelmingly. Now, do they have missiles in underground bunkers because they're a terror state? Sure they do, and we've acknowledged that from the beginning. Yeah, but their capacity is less today than it's ever been. They obviously have significant capacity to effectively disrupt the entirety of the Middle East and oil flows out of the Middle East, and that's not going to change. Let me ask you one more question. This is a request for supplemental funding because you don't have the funding in your base budget to do what you need to do, which makes questions about the base budget relevant. There's been a lot of attention, Mr. Secretary, on the modernization of a luxury jet that was gifted to the president by the government of Qatar. Reports suggest as much as $1 billion in your base funding, extraordinary amount of money, has been used for an upgrade, and the plane's back in the shop for a second upgrade. As far as I can tell, never before has an administration not made public the amount of money for an upgrade or a construction contract on a presidential airplane. Obviously, we don't need or want to disclose the details of that upgrade, but never before have you withheld from Congress and the public the total amount of money. I think there are two really important questions here. One, will you make public the amount of money that you are spending to upgrade this plane? And two, can you commit to this Congress and this committee that the president isn't going to take this plane with him when he leaves office? The only thing more insulting to the taxpayers of spending money on a jet they don't need would be for the president to take it with him, to take it out of our military inventory when he leaves office. So the Air Force has done an incredible job making that a capable jet that ultimately, but its capabilities and investment are classified.
How much?
Considering security.
No one wants to know his capabilities. We want to know how much.
You disclose the amount of money publicly. I would imagine as part of the regular budget process, that's something that we would look at. And will you commit that the president will not? You have to look at the classification level of certain things that are not devolved for reasons of national security. Will you commit that the president?
Just want a number. I don't want to know anything that it does. Right? I don't want to know how many shitters it's got on it. Don't care. How much money was spent on it?
Will not take this jet with him out of federal inventory when he leaves office. That's not a decision for necessarily me to make, and ultimately we're grateful to have it in the fleet of the Air Force to protect the President of the United States. That's a deeply satisfactory answer to the American public.
Amazing. Wouldn't answer it. Wouldn't answer it.
Folks, welcome to the hearing today.
I apologize. Is Senator Ossoff still here? Oh. I'm sorry. I went out of order. Senator Ossoff.
Oh, yield my time to Senator Ossoff.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you all for your testimony. And General Kane, let me just begin by expressing on behalf of all Georgians our immense gratitude and admiration for
flexing on these hoes
who are making tremendous sacrifices and conducting themselves with extraordinary selflessness and professionalism on behalf of the United States and our state's unified condolences and grief for the families of the 4 killed in action and our hope for a swift recovery for the nearly 100 wounded over the last 2 weeks. And thank you to you for your service to the nation. Mr. Hegseth, you're requesting roughly $68 billion for the department through the supplemental, correct?
67, yes.
And yesterday, your department stated publicly, quote, U.S. forces struck Iranian military command centers, maritime capabilities, missile and drone launch sites, and air defense systems to degrade Iran's ability to continue attacking commercial vessels. That was a press release from your department. Is that a broadly accurate characterization of ongoing operations?
That sounds broadly accurate, yes.
On day 14 of this conflict, Mr. Secretary, day 14, nearly 5 months ago, you stated that Iran's military had been, quote, destroyed and, quote, made combat ineffective. That was on day 14 of the war. Was that an accurate statement?
Destroyed, made combat ineffective. But somehow, they're still making combat.
They didn't have a Navy any longer. It's completely sunk. Their missiles were buried underneath a lot of their underground facilities, and their defense industrial base has been almost completely destroyed. So as far as a military assessment of Iran's capabilities, it didn't mean by any stretch of the imagination absolute zero.
Here's a hint. He's never gonna answer any of these questions.
But Mr. Secretary, you stated that on day 14 of this conflict, in the second week of the conflict, you stated that Iran's military had been, quote, destroyed and, quote, made combat ineffective. Was that an accurate statement? Yes or no? Iran's ability to challenge the United States of America at the level at which we're capable of.
That's not what I asked you, Mr. Secretary. You said on day 14 Iran's military had been, quote, destroyed and, quote, made combat ineffective. Yes or no? Was that an accurate statement?
What the American military has done to the Iranian military is a historic military feat, and they're ineffective in that context.
3 weeks later, you declared victory. That was now nearly 4 months ago. 3 weeks after you'd already said Iran's military was destroyed and combat ineffective, you said, quote, Operation Epic Fury was a historic and overwhelming victory. You said Iran's military had been rendered, quote, combat ineffective for years to come. And you stated we had, quote, achieved every single objective. Were those accurate?
The years have come. It just took, a couple weeks.
Statements.
It certainly was, on behalf of the men and women in uniform, a historic military victory over Iran.
Had Iran's military been rendered, quote, combat ineffective for years to come? That
They
was a statement that you made 4 months ago.
have 160 naval vessels,
You need to answer
water
questions,
navy,
Mr.
and
Secretary.
their Air Force
You
is
said 4 months
completely
ago.
combat ineffective.
You said
They don't
4
have a
months
defense
ago.
industrial base.
Excuse
To
me,
describe
Mr.
to me a country that doesn't have an Air Force and Navy or defense industrial base, and I will describe to you a company that doesn't have an effective
Mr. Secretary, you
military. They
stated,
can lob missiles.
Mr. Secretary, you stated 4 months
It's not
ago
combat
that
effective
Iran's
military.
military had been rendered, quote, combat ineffective for years to come. Has Iran's military been for the last 4 months combat ineffective?
It's been set back not just years, but likely decades.
You stated we had, quote,
at the level
you
it did before, and not
stated
even
we
close.
had,
It doesn't mean it
quote,
doesn't have capabilities.
Mr. Secretary, you stated we had, quote, achieved every single objective. Was that an accurate statement 4 months ago?
The main objective of this was to ensure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon. Their main sites were obliterated. We're watching over them, and we're holding that issue. If they don't give them up at the table, there's other ways we can take
Early
them
in
away.
the conflict
Iran will
on day
never have a
3,
nuclear
Mr.
weapon.
Secretary, early in the conflict, day 3, you said one of those core objectives was to, quote, destroy the missile threat. And as you restated on day 5, to, quote, obliterate Iran's missiles and drones. Those were clearly and repeatedly stated core objectives of the campaign, which 4 months ago you declared had been completed victoriously with every single objective achieved. Were those objectives achieved 4 months ago?
No one ever stated that every single missile was gone. Ultimately, combat ineffective means they're not.
You said you were going to destroy all their missiles and drones. Then you said that was a goal. Then you said every goal had been achieved. Now we're sitting here looking at missiles and drones. No one ever said they wouldn't have any missiles. Well, you did.
To take them out of their UGFs and shoot them. It doesn't mean they don't have underground facilities where they put missiles in them and hold on to them because they're the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism. So we never expected they would stop having capabilities to shoot. The question is at scale against a opponent like the United States of America, which went toe-to-toe with them, Iran couldn't.
You stated on March 8th, day 9 of the war, on 60 Minutes, you assured the American people of Iranian surrender. Does that remain your prediction?
Ultimately, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon to threaten the United States of America. That has been the objective.
Surrender.
So just to review, you will not answer whether your statement made on the 14th day of the war that Iran's military had been, quote, destroyed and made combat ineffective was a truthful statement to the American people as you sit here and ask for tens of billions more.
The senator's time has
a historic and effective military campaign against the largest state sponsor of terrorism.
Senator Peters is recognized.
Hell yeah.
And thank you to our witnesses here today. I want to begin by first echoing my colleagues' comments that we've heard throughout.
I ain't going to answer it, motherfuckers.
Of American service.
Don't have to.
In action these last few days. My thoughts are with their families, with a service member who remains missing, and with all those injured during the I will continue to pray for their families. Secretary Hegseth, over the course of the war with Iran, I have repeatedly expressed concerns regarding the administration's lack of a winning strategy and repeated contradictions about.
Hi, guys. Hell, it's fucking 10 minutes after 2 or some shit. I got to go. Thank y'all for hanging out with me. Support the show if you want to. This was interesting. We watched the majority. Well, we probably watched 3/4 of it. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for being here. Thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. If you want to support the show, do that at buymeacoffee.com/coldbeer or justquicktools.com/mylinks/coldbeerconfessional. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for being here. Thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see everybody tomorrow. Love you. See you. Bye. Support the show, you bunch of freeloading pieces of crap.
But I can tell you
I don't give a flip, okay? I'll say it.
This particular,
I don't give a flip.
You don't have the fork and balls to call out the people on this planet by name and tell them exactly who they are and tell them the rest of the world who they are. You don't have the fork and balls. You don't have the balls.
Okay, Scott. Here we go. I think I started some shit.
You know what I don't give? A flip.
Get the place in the best, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the best, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. And they say that I'm a lunatic. Well listen bitch, I came equipped with a quick wit and a 6 cents for the stupid shit. Where my true believer? Y'all need Jesus. Praise the Lord, head to the extreme. All these false fucking prophets who profit off of gossip. Worshiping drums, cocking, begging for a throat deposit. Swinging fucking meat hammer.
Did you guys see the cake that I got for Liam's little sleepover to embarrass him? Hold on.
For attention, I'm gonna make your gut.
Can you guys read that? He's an island boy. Liam the island boy.
yet.
All his friends thought it was hilarious.
Piss him off, it's about to get lit. Get the bass in the beds, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. I used to find clues too when I was high on shrooms. I found myself a tunnel that led to Jason Q's bedroom. Open his closet, I found some of his meat.
Historically, Trump has gotten rid of people when they didn't perform so well in front of Congress. We'll see. Who knows?
Trump in between, put on a light coat of baby oil and saluted the troops. He tapped me on the shoulder and said, "This is gonna be it." Whoa, wait. Stop. What? I'll get my files. Wait, what are you doing? Stop. Hold on. Fucking stop. Dude, come on. Seriously. My mom's an alcoholic. Oh, give me oh my God. Damn it. Here we go.
Good night, island people.
Piss him off, it's about to get lit.
Good night, Bort.